Evening. Welcome to the October 3rd meeting of the Westborough Planning Board. I will remind everyone this meeting is being recorded. We have a pretty full agenda that I will go through quickly. We have a public hearing for zoning dimensional regulations for projects in the M1 district, particularly Upton Road and Moore Street and 131 Oak Street to support potable water distribution and treatment. We have a town manager presentation on the proposed community center and vote of recommendation or support. Westborough Affordable Housing Trust presentation on town meeting warrant articles. Continuation of public hearing to modify the commercial component of special permit TOV 2014-1 for Village Commons at 1 Gleason. Update on 1 Gleason special permit for Village Commons. Continuation of the public hearing for site plan review application at 161 Milk Street. And a draft presentation on the master plan update. I'm not sure what everyone is here for. If it's 161 Milk Street, we're a good hour away from that, so just to warn you. All right. We're going to start with the public hearing for zoning dimensional regulations for projects in the M1 district. This is a public hearing, and I have to read a legal notice into the record. So bear with me on this, it's long. Legal notice of the Town of Westborough Office of the Planning Board, notice of public hearing. The Town of Westborough Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, October 3rd, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. in the Great Hall of Forbes Building, 45 West Main Street, Westborough, Massachusetts, on 2 articles to appear on the warrant for the October 16th, 2023 Westborough Fall Town Meeting, to see if the town will vote to establish the use and dimensional regulations as required under Section 5.4 Dimensional Schedule Building in the M1 District of the Westborough zoning bylaws for the town-owned properties located at the intersection of Upton Road and Moore Street and 131 Oak Street. The purpose of establishing these regulations is to create a building and site work envelope to allow the construction of new structures and/or building additions to support potable water distribution and treatment. The dimensional regulations for the site, including any required future construction, shall be as follows. Upton Road and Moore Street, minimum front yard 0, minimum side yard 0, minimum rear yard 0, maximum structure height 35 feet. 131 Oak Street, minimum front yard 0, minimum side yard 0, minimum rear yard 0, and maximum structure height 60 feet. Copy of the entire proposed zoning articles and corresponding plans are on file with and can be viewed at the offices of the Westborough Planning Board and Westborough Town Clerk during their business hours. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the proposed article should attend the public hearing indicated above. And that was in the Worcester Telegram and Gazette on September 6th and September 13th. I'm going to ask Jenny to introduce this while I catch my breath.
Good job. We do have someone here from DPW to present.
Good, everyone. My name is Joe Bacadoro. I'm an assistant town representative. Here to projects that we're proposing. A couple of slides, concluding with the the first site that we're proposing top of the slide. It's 131 Oak Street. It happens to be where his offices are right now. There are a number of sites, but as you'll hear, proposing an addition to the second site is on the bottom of the slide. At the intersection. That site is currently vacant. A new building on that site. These are 2 separate projects. They're not connected in any way, both being driven by
I don't think
Is it plugged in?
I don't think it's working.
Here we go. Okay, so this is the first site. This is the DPW building site. As you can see, there are a number of existing structures on this site, and the call out there indicates where we're proposing to add an addition to an existing building. That building happens to be the water treatment facility that's located on the site, and the reason we have to put an addition there is to add equipment that will treat for PFAS. You might be aware that about 3 years ago, as a result of routine sampling at our Chauncey wells, we found some elevated levels of PFAS. And this equipment that we're proposing to add to this treatment facility will allow the well water to be treated and to be pumped back into the system. Right now, those Chauncey wells are offline, and they've been offline for about 3 years. The second site that we're proposing dimensional regulations is at the intersection of Upton Road and North Street. And this is another DEP matter where a number of years ago, they pointed out to us that the chemicals that are needed to make the water safe to drink that are housed in both the North Street well building and the Hopkinton well building lacked adequate containment and weren't being stored correctly. So in order to address DEP's concerns, a separate building needed to be constructed, and the site that we're proposing is right near the North Street well. So this building will house the appropriate chemicals and provide the adequate containment and safe way of storing these chemicals versus the way they were being stored before. So this slide shows the dimensional regulations that we're proposing for the DPW site. As the chair mentioned at the outset, 0 setbacks for front, side, and rear yard, and maximum structure height of 60 feet. And for the Upton Morse site, zeros again for the setbacks for the front, rear, and side yard, and 35 feet for the max structure height. So that concludes the brief presentation, and we can open it up to any comments or questions at this point.
Jenny, do we have any comments or anything from reports from town departments or staff, your recommendations? And then we'll turn to questions from the board.
Yes, thank you. So we don't have any other comments from other departments or boards, but I will make a note that for Article, I believe it's 12, it might be 11 now because I know the warrant was renumbered. There is some wording in there that talks about a site work envelope, and after consultation with town council and the building department staff, it is recommended that the site work envelope term be removed. So that's reflected in your packet, our recommendation. Essentially, it's not changing the dimensional requirements. The term site work envelope is not reflected anywhere in the zoning. The zoning is just talking about the dimensions to the actual building or structure and does not include the site work envelope. So we do not feel it's appropriate to include that term in the warrant.
Questions from the board? Hazel?
I wondered why that building has to be 60 feet tall. I mean, all the buildings in that area are lower, 1 or 2 stories, and I'm just wondering if that's kind of going to stick out like a sore thumb. And so I'm wondering why it's necessary to have a building that needs to be that tall.
The building is not proposed to be that tall.
Okay.
It'll only be about 20 feet tall.
All right.
So what we're suggesting is setting these dimensional regulations for the entire site, so to provide flexibility, so that if another building or a building addition needs to be done in the future, that the process of going to town meeting and having these hearings we've already gone through it, so and established these dimensional regulations for the entire site. So that 60-foot dimension mirrors the zoning that surrounds the site. So in the future, not that we would ever want to, but in the future, if a building of that height were to be proposed, it wouldn't exceed the surrounding zoning, what's allowed by the surrounding zoning.
I just think that's awfully tall for that particular site, so that's all I was wondering about. I don't know that I'm going to be happy to see a 60-foot building on that site.
60 feet is 4 stories?
I think he's saying that 60 feet is currently in that zoning district, what's allowed.
No, I'm just curious, what could you build? A 4-story building in 60 feet or 3-story? 5 stories? 12 foot a story?
Is the same thing with the zoning on Upton and Morse surrounding for 35?
Yeah, yes, that's residential height, 35 feet.
And what's the proposed height of the building on Upton Road?
It's about 18 feet.
Okay.
And that says maximum structure height 35 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's at 18.
so that's more reasonable.
There's a building there currently, correct?
Not on the Upton Road Morse site, no.
Okay.
So I actually don't, I mean, I think a big building at the Oak Street site will not look out of place. I don't know if 5 stories is exactly what I had in mind, but you've got the Spectrum development on one side, you've got the ice rink on the other side, gas station, I mean,
No, I'm just thinking.
you really don't get to smaller
aesthetically
residential
when
till
I'm
you
driving
get down
down Oak Street is,
Chauncey Street.
yeah, it just seemed very tall.
Yeah, 5 stories is pretty tall, but, so what is the process then for the actual building? Does the design and, procurement go to town meeting as well? I mean, there's an article on there for the,
For the DPW site, there's a supplemental funding article that's coming up, so the lion's share of the money was approved at a prior town meeting. For the Upton Moore Street site, it's conceptual at this point, and there's no funding in place for construction at the moment, where we need to proceed with final design and
and you'll come back to the board with a site plan approval for the building? Is that,
if we have to.
well, if the articles pass, but you, at that point, we'd have a chance to comment on the story height if it's in the design of the building and so on? Okay.
Yeah, no, I was wondering whether it has to come before design review. Jenny, does it have to come before design review?
So for the DPW location, I don't believe so. For the Upton Morse site, I guess I'm sorry, I don't know exactly where that's located.
Yeah, that's
to
the one
follow.
I'm more concerned about, was the Upton one, because of all the residential buildings
Yeah,
around it.
that's zoned residential.
Yeah.
Okay, so potentially, and then for site plan review, the threshold is 2,500 square feet or less would just be subject to a limited site plan review through staff.
Okay.
Why is the Morse Upton site asking for 0 lot line setbacks?
We're proposing that just for flexibility to, in the future, if a building addition or a companion building were to be built on the site, that we would have the flexibility to position the building on the site as, if needed, as close to a lot line as possible. We're not envisioning that, but we just are asking for that for flexibility.
Not super comfortable with having 0 setbacks next to a residential district and residential uses, even for a municipal building. Sorry. I'm not super comfortable having 0 setbacks in a residential district with residences right there, especially for a municipal building. I mean, I'm not saying we should go crazy, but at least having a 10-foot setback, I think would be reasonable.
yeah.
Is there any intent to ever put a building within a 10-foot setback of lot line?
We'd be comfortable with 10 feet. I mean, the closer you get to a lot line, I think the more discomfort that anyone will have, just because of the vagary of survey and so on. So 10 feet will work for us.
Can you go back to the plan?
For Upton
For
Morse.
Upton, yeah, please. So it's really, I think it's just right here.
Yeah,
Yeah, just
Right.
those two.
yeah. Is there a residential use north of the site?
I think that's a town-owned parcel as well.
So it's just number 6? That's
Yes,
abutting it.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a comment on that. I mean, I appreciate the need for flexibility, and I certainly, where you don't have a specific building design yet, you took the underlying zoning for the height, and I don't mean you in particular,
Yeah,
but
that's okay.
I feel like we probably should have used the underlying zoning for the setbacks. I don't know offhand, I'd have to look those up. I think they're more than 10 on frontage.
If I have it correctly, I think minimum front is 50, side is 15, rear is 30.
This is a corner lot, so you wouldn't have a rear yard. So that would be
okay.
side, those would be two sides.
You have two,
Yeah.
you have two
fronts.
fronts.
So if you did two sides at 15, that would be in keeping with the underlying zoning in a residential district. I think that's
Well, yeah, but
reasonable.
at the same time, don't you want to keep the 50-foot setback from the street on those two
I'm not
corners?
super concerned about that because it's a street. I mean, if you're abutting residential uses on your
Right.
side lot lines, you might want to set that back to allow for some screening.
We don't want it 0.
No, I wouldn't want it 0.
Right,
But I mean,
exactly.
the front, I understand. You may want to build closer to the road. It's not a residential use
Yeah.
in a residential district. It's not going to be abutting any residential properties on the frontage. It's
I
on the
mean, I
side.
guess I'd be comfortable with 15 all the way around there.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, 15 all the way around for front too.
Yeah, I think the same would apply at Oak Street. I don't know what the underlying zoning there is for front yards and side yards, but I think we should probably have something.
So again, if I have it right, for the business highway and industrial B, it's 25 feet for front setback. It's actually 25 across the board for all setbacks. Front, side, and rear are all 25.
Oh, okay.
And that's for the Oak Street property?
There's a mixed, yeah, that's for Oak Street. There's also mixed use abutting, which is, has 10 feet setback, and I don't know if I have this right, but I thought I pulled 0 out of the table for side and rear. So, but for this particular site, we can work with those setbacks in all cases. One thing that I'm confused about is whether the planning board is okay with us setting the dimensional regulations for the entire site, or if we're only talking specifically about the building. Because if we're talking about the entire, I should say the parcel, not the site. If we're talking about the entire parcel, we have an existing building right now that's about 18 to 20 feet away from a property line. So it'd be
but
difficult
that's-
for us to agree with a setback that will immediately put us in violation, so,
Well, that's pre-existing, so I
Yeah.
mean, that'll just stay the way it is, so.
Okay.
Even if there's, nobody's going to make you move it.
All right, is that it from the board? Okay.
Yeah,
this-
I'd be comfortable with the present setbacks, I mean, for the district, for that particular piece. Just
For
keep-
both cases or just for the Morse Upton?
No, I think I think we could separate them. I mean, for the Oak Street, I'd leave it as it is presently in that.
With the zero
District.
setback?
No.
The underlying zoning?
The underlying zoning. And on the Moore Street, I could see, I'd like to see a 15-foot setback all the way around on it.
I agree with the 15.
Is the underlying zoning for the Oak Street property going to inhibit or prohibit DPW from doing what they want to do with that site in the future?
I don't think so. The building addition that we're proposing is 40 by 40. And right now, I think we're 85 feet off of the property line, so that would reduce the setback to something like 45 feet. So that would give us a little bit of leeway to do something there. And we've got room around other sides of the building to do something there in the future.
You could always come back if you needed to get closer than the
That's true.
25. Any other questions? Okay. This is a public hearing. I will ask for public comments. Would like to keep those short, 3 to 5 minutes. And please address any questions through the chair. We prefer not to have back and forth between speakers and audience members. So if you do have any questions on this, either of these public hearings, please come up, identify yourself and address if you're a resident, and I will recognize you.
Yeah, that's-
Mike's on.
I'm just specifically concerned about the open morse.
So the building right now, we're in the conceptual design stage, so this could change going forward, but not substantially so. The building right now is proposed to be about 18 by 36.
And can I ask why it was chosen to be on that parcel versus the southern parcel, the bottom left?
This parcel was identified as being the best choice because it was the best blend of distances between the Moore Street well itself and Hopkinton well, which is on Hopkinton Road. So some piping has to extend from the Hopkinton Road well site to this site, so it was just the best combination of factors that resulted in the shortest distance among those two well sites.
I mean, the well's right across the street either way,
Yeah.
right? So,
Well, Morris is right across the street, but the Hopkinton well site is on Hopkinton Road.
can you go to the, can I see the other picture, the close-up? Can you,
So this doesn't show where the Hopkinton well is. Let me go back to this and see if I can.
so I guess what I thought I heard was this is for chemical storage?
Chemical feed and storage, yes, and to inject into the water distribution system.
Oh, so you're injecting as well? I'm not sure what else to say. I have a concern about storage of chemicals on such a close site to a residential area. It's right at the entrance to my neighborhood. It's a particular parcel that's got a lot of streams running through, and a lot of woods, and I'm just trying to understand versus the southern one, which while not ideal, I get is a little bit more open. So I'm just trying to understand why it needs to be there.
Which is the southern one? You're referring to the one across Moore Street on the other side of Moore Street?
One more time, I'm sorry.
Which is the southern one?
Oh, the bottom left. Well, they're both labeled M1, so this is not a great picture, but there's four, at the intersection, there's 4 parcels. I think they're all owned by the town.
Yeah.
The top right is the one that's being suggested. The bottom left is, I'm just trying to, the top left is where there's already what I thought it was a pump station. And the bottom left is an open parcel as well, or more open than the parcel that's being proposed. If you go to the other picture, it might be a little easier to see. But.
1 second.
So,
have a question?
just a question for you all, but I just wanted to point out, it looks like, I'm just looking at the Westborough GIS, and every site on that corner except for the one that's being proposed has wetlands on it, so that might be a contributing factor. But could you just kind of generally explain how these chemicals are stored and what precautions are done in the building so that there's no leakage, no seepage into the ground, kind of give everyone a understanding about that?
So the chemicals, I'll list what the chemicals are. They're very typical water treatment chemicals. So there's potassium hydroxide, which is used for pH adjustment, sodium hypochlorite, which is used for disinfection, zinc orthophosphate, which is used for corrosion control, and sodium fluoride for fluoridation. And all of those chemicals are currently being used at the well sites now. They're just being stored in this building, but and used as a means to feed back into the water distribution network. So inside the building, there'll be some storage tanks constructed of a heavy-duty plastic-like material, and which rarely leaks, but nonetheless, the regulatory requirements are for secondary containment. So these tanks will be within a secondary means of containment. So if they do leak, it will be contained within that containment area. And the size of the containment area is larger than the storage volume for the chemical itself. So if there's a sudden burst of a tank, the containment area is designed to take that entire volume of the tank plus allowances for splashing.
Joe, Lisa, did you have comments? Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Lisa, town engineer. Just to reiterate some of what Joe was saying, this project is being done because DEP is requesting us to do, because our current practices, in their opinion, aren't as safe as what we're proposing to do. So we're trying to, not only satisfy regulatory issues, we're making a situation safer. And it was exactly what you had said on selecting the site for environmental reasons. We met numerous times with Concom representatives. And so in light of that, we tried to do the combination of the least intrusive, and also, I'm not an expert, Joe's much more on the chemical processes and how far, I guess, the farther the distance is, it makes it more harder to do what we need to do. And you would know much better than I do. So we had to kind of manage all of those. But I guess my primary point is, A, it's a regulatory requirement, what we're doing, and B, it's better than what's there now.
Okay. Can I just, Jenny, I believe if this is approved and the money's approved, this will come back for site plan approval? Or
I'm not sure, that's up
if it's over
to you
2,500 square
guys.
feet, right?
Yes,
18 by
potentially.
36, is that over
Yeah.
2,500 square? I can't do the math in my head.
Oh, wait a minute, 20 by...
Use your phone.
648 square feet, all right. So there won't be, my point is that if it was coming back for site plan, you would get another notice, and a lot of these questions about safety, drainage, all of that stuff gets covered at site plan, but since that building doesn't require a public hearing for site plan, I'll give you some leeway on these questions. I feel like we're getting a little outside of dimensional regulations, but completely understand why you have questions. So we're well over 5 minutes, but if you have anything else, please.
Yeah, I mean, safety and certainly is, obviously, it's the entrance to my neighborhood, so I'm trying to make sure it's not a completely unsightly mess there,
Yeah.
which I know isn't necessarily the purview here, but something I'm concerned about from a value perspective. I'm all for clean water, don't get me wrong.
We all are. Yeah, I'd like to think, again, I'm just not clear of the process as far as the design of the building, what it's going to look like, if there'll be any public input on that, or how does that process work?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, that's up to, I guess, zoning and you guys.
Yeah, we would take a look at the plans they submitted, and it sounds like it would go through a limited site plan review with staff. So we would take a look at the plans at that time.
Okay.
I mean, I'm assuming ultimately to get the funding, we would have to go to town meeting, and because it's a very expensive project. Not that the public probably, not that they can formally comment, but obviously as a townsperson voting on it, if they would like to see what we're proposing, that, they have that opportunity to talk to us about it. And we're always, fully open. I mean, you can come in anytime. I mean, we're far from that part. Our intentions is not to be right on the property line. Our intentions is, obviously, it's more cost-effective not to take trees down. We want to minimize pavement. All those are cost factors. So, we're not looking to put in a highway through there or anything, so.
Yeah, I just think where it's, a use that's not residential, I think we really need to be sensitive to the residential neighbors on this and do some public outreach on,
Right.
Before that building is actually built.
I guess a comparison would be, it's on a little bit of a larger scale, but on some of the sewer pump stations, I mean, it's a similar thought, it's similar.
Yeah, I mean, an
type
18 by
building.
36 brick building with, a nice outward appearance is a
Well,
lot
it's all
different than
how
the
much you want to
DPW building.
spend.
Yeah.
Pump station, right.
Well, that is a cost issue, I know, but it's
Right,
also,
Yeah, and then the last piece that I had was just the lack of the dimensionality. There's no, I mean, they're open, it's wide open, 0, 0, 0, 0, not having any bound, they can build all the way right up onto the street and all the way back to it's not my neighbor, it's not my yard, but they can build all the way through.
yeah, I think we've addressed, made our preference known on requiring at least minimum setbacks.
Yep, we're perfectly amenable to that.
All right, I would like to give other people a chance, so thank you for your time. Again, please name and address for the record, and we'll try to give you
Hello,
equal time.
I'm Will Wallace from 22 Morse Street, and my concern is the perhaps increased traffic. That area has a lot of traffic in the morning, and I'm wondering what this building would bring for traffic. Number two is the building appearance and lighting and so forth, fencing. Is there something that you would consider for the residents in that area to not further infringe on their privacy? Thank you.
Do you have a response for that?
We don't have any specifics on the design. It's very conceptual right now. So we're,
Normally, the design would require a funding article on top of the
Correct.
dimensional articles, so is there a
Correct.
funding article in this town meeting for it?
I don't believe so, no. So,
So there's no money to build this building yet, anyway?
No.
You're just doing this one because you're asking for the money for Oak Street, and you're trying to get the
for the
two
dimensions, right.
two-dimensional ones out of the way?
So if we weren't given, we have to establish, get this passed before we would even do the design, because it doesn't make sense to make the design if we can't make it work, so.
Could you address the traffic? That was his other question.
I don't, oh, do you know?
The one traffic item that could come into play is, and it's not an extensive addition, is that probably once every 30 days, a truck will come and replenish the chemical that's stored in the building. So about once every 30 days, there'll be a truck there, and occasional visits by DPW.
Sir, name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Alan Brule, 18 Moore Street. So I have a couple of concerns. Environmentally, I have concerns. You're putting chemicals in that jackstraw, which is feeding into the Sudbury, into Cedar Swamp, which is at the head of the Sudbury. It seems, it's environmentally, it strikes me as not a very good site because of everything that goes on there. I mean, that floods there. Maybe not right on that piece of property it doesn't flood, but the whole area floods. And now you're saying you're going to bring a truck in once every 30 days and put chemicals in, and you're saying, well, the building itself has a double hull, like a tanker. Well, we've seen those leak. If we don't learn from our past mistakes with oil tankers, I think we're not doing a very smart thing. And we could have a spill just on unloading chemicals. And now we've polluted water and things, and we're putting a chemical site into a residential area. Why don't we put the site away from a residential area? Yeah, it's going to be more expensive, but is cost really what we're worried about here? Or is it safety of the residents, home values, and environmental? And at first I was under the impression that this was going to be a scrub site, that this was going to be like the Oak Street site. But this has nothing to do with getting the forever chemicals out. This has everything to do with chemical storage. And we could store chemicals anywhere. Why don't we store them out like we always do out on Flanders Road out by Route 9? Yeah, it'd be more expensive, but you know, that's the price of doing business, and we're in a community where we care about each other, I think. So that's my concern. And I don't know how the board feels about that, but I'd be interested to hear.
Mark, I have a question. Are there chemicals stored now out there?
Yes, so given, thank you for letting me respond to that. So currently, you have chemicals in a parcel almost adjacent to that, or across the street.
Down by the well on Hopkinton Road?
That is storing these chemicals in DEP's mind not correctly. So you're more at risk by us not doing
let her finish,
anything.
Mark, sorry.
Okay? We're trying to be, this is a mandated compliance to make things safer for the residents. Okay?
Which residents?
For the water treatment of the residents. The more, and you're correct, the farther away we get, there's more complications, you know, we need, and we can get into that another time. I'm sure everyone doesn't want to hear about all the technical issues. But we're, you know, as you go farther away, the cost is a factor. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars. Right. So we have to evaluate between that. We have to evaluate all concerns. Like I said, we've met extensively with Conservation Commission. This is their best selection for us. They have told us basically what they would like, and this is what they decided, that this was the safest for the environment. So I don't believe that argument is a factor in this. I mean, they you know, we purposely picked the site for a reason in the spot that we're thinking of putting it. The containment, you know, we're talking about newer technology than what we have. And again, this is a mandated requirement.
Okay, so I've
chemicals that are used.
I've heard about new technology for nuclear power too. You know, we're going to eventually find a
But we're not
solution to
proposing.
nuclear. I know.
We're not
for nuclear
doing
power.
that.
sorry,
As
we
far
just-
as
I'm just
spills,
saying. I'm just saying. Look,
let's stop the
okay,
back
hang on
and
one
forth,
second.
please.
And
So
let's-
I want to just be clear what we're voting on at town meeting. Are we voting on a zoning change to allow a building to go in there? Are we voting? Is that what we're voting
We're
on?
voting on dimensional regulations for the site that would determine where the maximum size of the building based on the setbacks, the height of the building. That's all we're voting on. We're not voting on funding of this building in this article. This is purely to say if the building is built, it can go up to 15 feet from, well, it sounds like our recommendation is going to be 15 feet from the side yards, which would be similar to what you have in the resident, what any resident, any building in the residential zone would have to conform to.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because it's unclear sometimes when I'm reading this stuff that what we're actually voting on.
Yeah, I think it's clear to me that when this article comes back for funding, there are going to be a lot of questions on safety, design, probably drainage, you know, given the flooding that you mentioned. again, I think those are all a little bit outside of the scope of a dimensional hearing.
But
But I understand.
but we are giving permission in this town meeting to build something on that site which is half-baked.
No, not giving, you can't build anything unless you have the money to build it. So I don't think we're giving anybody permission yet. It's purely to set the dimensional regulations. As far as I'm concerned, it could probably wait until they're ready to build the building too, so.
I mean, we're essentially saying that a building can be built on this lot. We're not saying what kind of a building, what sort of a building. That's all we're saying. So all we're looking at is the setbacks. And I think that was the reason we discussed the fact that instead of having a zero setback, which is what the proposal is, that we would conform more to what the residential setbacks are in that particular area. But this just would allow a building to be built on that piece of property.
Right.
It doesn't say what kind or where it's even going to go on the property.
Right, and I appreciate the concern with setbacks, and what you've said, but I'm concerned with the whole project. Thank you.
I'd like to give someone else a chance. If is there anyone else, please, just name and address for the record, please.
Dave Venzel, 8 Moore Street, so you could actually see my house on that map. So I have like a great concern about this because right now, even at the wellhead across the street, at times at night, during the day, all different times you can hear the pump go on. So how much sound dampening is going to be, you're going to be injecting chemicals, you're going to be utilizing pumps during the day, during the night, all the time, whenever needed. So right now it wakes us up sometimes, it's so loud. Can you go into that a little bit?
So we're not doing anything with the well itself in terms of pumping. That well will still pump the way it pumps now. Inside the building, the equipment that's going in there is very quiet. You shouldn't hear any noise from the building at all. It's just small pumps that inject the water treatment chemicals into the distribution system.
And I guess from a zoning perspective, are we starting to now put commercial buildings at the end of residential pieces of property? Now, I realize that this is mandated by the state, but there are many other places that you could do it. And if you say that the building is already being used to store chemicals, why not just update that building to meet compliance codes?
Yeah, so this isn't zoned commercial. This is zoned municipal.
It's zoned
Okay.
municipal, but you're putting
So,
it.
so we're putting a municipal building. It may be a different design than a residential home, but it's not a commercial building.
But it's going to be used not as a house. How's that? It's not someone going to be living there. It's going to be something where tanker trucks go in there and drop chemicals off, and DPW people go out. And if you look on there, my neighbors are here and I'm here. My kids play down in that area, and that's a big deal for us. And some of these chemicals are, rather toxic. I was a chemist for a period of time for 14 years, so I know, potassium hydroxide, sodium fluoride, these things, if they are dropped, they will cause problems. And that, at the end of a residential neighborhood, where this residential neighborhood also has another problem, in that the other end is the dump. Why don't we store the chemicals by the dump? Why don't we put them where there's already things that are not great for the environment? Why don't we think about changing that a little bit? So.
You want to respond to that?
I do. So the existing site is not a good site because it's in the floodplain, and as you know, it floods. So it has numerous problems already. So for us to build an addition and do that would be irresponsible because we know that that site has flooding issues. It's within the floodplain. Again, those are some of the things we went through with Concom. We're trying to get this into a non-impact area to the environment. I do want to address the concerns with the tanker truck. We're only talking, and I know it is a lot, but in concept, around 4,000, possibly 9,000 gallons.
So it'd be
Once
like an
every
oil
30
truck?
days.
Be like the size of an oil
4,000?
truck?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's only 4,000. He's the expert on this.
Like the size of an oil truck? Smaller, bigger?
Probably a little bigger. I guess you're talking once every 30 days. The tractor-trailer traffic on that road, there could be an accident at any time and gasoline could be spilled at any time into the environmental concerns that everybody has. So obviously, there's a greater risk of that than what we're proposing. And again, the measures we have now, this is occurring now with not as good safety measures. We're trying to make it better and safer. So by doing nothing, and it's a by right, what we're doing now, we can keep on doing and leave it that way. But that wouldn't be socially or environmentally friendly. I mean, I don't want to do that. I'm trying to make it safer. I mean, I have kids, I understand.
Yeah.
So I get that.
One more question,
Sure.
if you will. Based on the recent freakish weather and potential going forward for this sort of weather, like what happened in Leominster, this is already next to a floodplain, and we've seen what happened when these 9 inches an hour of rain can come through. There's already a stream that runs through this site as well. So how do you propose preventing any sort of flooding incidents from happening in these freakish rainfalls that we seem to be having?
So obviously, we will, when we get to the design part, we will follow the stormwater guidelines. Obviously, we don't want it to flood either. It's only going to cause problems for us internally and cost us money. I mean, we're going to design to the best of our ability to prevent that. I mean, it doesn't, why would we build something that was inferior? I mean,
Because of money.
so we'll be looking at that. And again, I mean, we're open to people during the design process as we go forward. You're welcome to, call us where we are and come look at this.
Can you put something in where before anything is approved, that it has to go before the town?
Jenny,
Because
I was
think this
going to
is
ask that
very-
question. Can we require a typical site plan review even though it's under the 2,500 so that abutters would get notified and they'd have to chance to come in and see the design, drainage, all of the things that are coming up?
So not technically. So when it comes to us for a limited site plan review, that will be online. So you can definitely check our website and the documents are all available online. But it wouldn't be under the planning board's purview to require that as a condition for this.
Would all that information about design be posted on planning board and DPW or either one, or are you just going to start building it?
Well, we can't just build it
Right, you need the
without
money.
so, I
So
mean,
when you come
obviously,
back
we
for the
can go through that
money,
process.
you'll come back for the money for the
But
design
we
and
obviously,
construction?
I mean, we have other projects, I mean, not the same idea, but it's the same idea that, the public is very involved and wants to be involved and call us frequently to see where we are in the status. And again, our doors are open for them to come in, take a look, and have any suggestions. As far as the drainage, I did want to add that we are in the middle of a design project for that intersection in the culverts for improving the drainage, trying to prevent that. And we're doing the actual construction on Bowman Lane, which is part of the Jack Straw Brook. And so this is a down gradient. So we are looking at those issues. We are trying to address those prior to building this. Obviously, we're in the beginning stages, but it's happening now. That's happening now. And again, the process for this building is going to take a while. So we're putting all the things in place to try to prevent to the best of our ability. I mean, no one can stop 9 inches of rain. But again, we're doing all the steps that we can possibly do to make it the most efficient design. I mean, again,
Lisa, did you look at other sites for this, or was this just a logical choice because it's dry and close to where it is already, or?
it's a logical,
Environmental concerns.
it's a logical choice because of the location close to the well. And environmental concerns too. We did look at, multiple properties, and Joe would know more, but, and again, it was a joint decision, what was best with conservation, because a lot of the parcels we do have, as you know, have a lot of environmental issues, and we don't want to do that. I mean, it's just not.
Could we, as a planning board, perhaps ask that as this project moves forward, we treat it in some ways like a public hearing? So in other words, though we're not required to, perhaps because of the nature of this particular building, that we could ask that neighbors be notified and sort of hold a type of public hearing because of, as I said, because of the nature of this project, which is different from most projects that we get with the town. And then
Yeah, I don't know that we can require that, Hazel, but I think we could recommend that, when this comes back for funding and design, that the same abutters who were given notice of this hearing be notified, rather than just relying on their,
people find
checking the DPW website every week, or, I don't want something to
I do
slip
have
by.
some concerns, though, putting the onus on us to make sure that the residents are notified. I mean, again, this information is online. We're always open for people to come in, email us, call us. As you know, we've got
No, I understand that as
lots of
but,
projects
yeah.
going on. So I just don't want to make any promises
Okay,
that we can't keep.
But I do understand that there are members of our community who, A, do not use computers, and B, don't really understand that in order to find out what's going on, they have to check various websites. So I just,
Right.
in this situation, maybe we can work out a better way to deal with this than we do with other municipal projects. So that's all I'm.
So I guess my only
I-
suggestion
yeah.
on that would
All right,
be then, if planning board would like to take the lead on that, we'll correspond with you, and you can notify the residents what you think's appropriate.
If I
Okay.
can
Can we-
make a
can we-
If we had
suggestion,
to-
Mark.
Can we pause for a second, because we do have another member of the public that wants to ask a question? Just name and address, please.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Goslin, 8 Moore Street. So I share, so first of all, I just want to say I appreciate, clean water. We're all for that. I share a lot of the concerns that my neighbors have raised, particularly about the flooding. So I was noticing on the map, all 4 quadrants there, where you see that arrow where it says Upton Moore Street, are green. And we're saying 3 of the quadrants are flood zones, and we're going to build it on the 4th quadrant that's not a flood zone. However, I think practically, we all know, anybody who lives in the neighborhood knows when that area floods, all of it floods. So to me, there must be a better place to build this if we're looking to make it safer. So that's my first comment. My second, I guess my question is, what happens at the town meeting if this gets voted down? What are the next steps, or what's the process like after that?
Once we get to that point, if it gets voted down, we have to notify DEP. They have, I believe, and if I'm speaking out of term, I think they have 2 actions to give us extended period of time to try to do more, or we can be fined. We'll start getting fined per day, the town itself.
Say that last sentence again, sorry.
We could get fined.
get
The
fined.
DEP will start fining us.
Okay. I guess I was just curious, you mentioned there were some other sites that were considered, and I'm sorry that we weren't involved in, or we didn't know about that process in order to give our kind of input or voice our concerns, but I was just curious if you can mention what those were.
I believe just those 4 quadrants were looked at. I'll be honest, I don't know the complexities by moving it. I don't, we can check to see if they, exactly what the cost versus moving them, if it's even practical. I'll be honest, I don't know that answer. I mean, that's why we hire the experts to tell us what was the best location. Again, as far as the drainage, trust me, we fully are aware of all the flooding, and that's why we are undertaking a huge study. We want to put multiple culverts in. We're working with conservation, and we've been doing that in preparation. Even if we weren't doing that, we would do that, but that will only help the situation. And, I mean, lastly, I guess I can only tell you how much I'm not going to have them build something that's not going to work and flood. It doesn't do me any good, doesn't do the DPW any good, it just would cost us more money. It just does not make sense to do something that doesn't, is the best fit.
Could I just ask one other quick question? I know I'm probably out of time. You mentioned there's chemical storage already in the pump house across the street, across Upton Road. Is that where all of the water treatment chemicals for the town of Westborough are stored, or are there other sites as well?
There are other sites. In general, what the objective is to try to store the chemical as close to the wellhead as you can and right at the wellhead. But in these particular locations, because of the constraints mentioned, we just can't do it.
So will we be moving the chemical treatment storage from other facilities to all be housed in this one?
No,
Okay.
just for the Hopkinton and Morse wells, that's it.
Okay, thanks.
Jenny, can I just ask Jenny a question?
Go ahead.
Jenny, my question is, if we do not pass this, what happens? It goes back to the original requirements under the Article 5, Section 5.4?
Well, if we don't pass this, then they'll have to find another location for this. They couldn't build the building, and we run the risk of DEP finding us. Is that my understanding?
Why couldn't, yeah, all right,
Finding the
why
town.
couldn't, I mean, it's a piece of public property, and the town has a right to do something with it if
Because
they wish.
zoning requires the town to go to town meeting and establish dimensional relations anytime you build on
Municipal land?
municipal land.
Okay, sorry.
That's a safeguard that was
I
built
just
into
wanted to get
zoning
that
in the
out so
town,
people were aware of
just
that.
so we could have this kind of
happens,
conversation.
yeah. Okay.
Hi, Caitlin Fryer, 6 Morse Street. Hello, neighbors. As you can tell from the map previously, me and my husband were the neighbors that this would be abutting. So as you can tell, we're actually very concerned for our family and our children and, our neighbors' children who play down there. Where is the entrance? Have that been established? Will this be off Morse Street or will the entrance be off Upton Road?
Off of Upton.
Okay. And then if this doesn't get passed and it gets fined, I mean, would the fines be recent? I'm not understanding, because I know this is going to be a long process. It has to go to the town. It has to be designed. So then how are these fines going to be now?
That's something that DEP will have to determine. Lisa mentioned that they have options. They can give us an extension, or they could start fining, and they could pick that date and time that they can start the fine, and I'm not sure of the amounts, but it'll be substantial, and they can fine every day until a solution is put in place. So those could mount up to very high numbers.
Okay, and I'm assuming since you've already gone to this process, because when we purchased our home, we were told that was wetlands and it couldn't be built upon. So has something changed, or was I under the wrong information that is not zoned wetlands?
No, I'm not sure who told you
Sure,
that?
yep.
Was it, if it was your realtor?
Nope, that's
or,
fine. So
you
it's
know.
it's not zoned wetlands, just because it
Yeah,
does get very wet down
Wetlands
there.
is a little different than zoning.
Okay,
Wetlands is established by the Conservation
Mm-hmm.
Department. They'll go out and stake the wetlands before any building is built.
And our intent is to put it as close to the road as we can to satisfy the fire department requirements. So we have to build the driveway in a way that a fire truck can go there and maneuver. So the farther away that you make us, the dimensional requirements for the frontage and all pushes us farther, closer to the back lot, or what I call the back lot lines, sidelines. So obviously, And there's more cost to that, more driveway, more maintenance, got to cut more trees down. So, I mean, our intent is to put it as close to the road as possible and minimize the impact, keep the costs down. I mean, so, I mean, it's not, we don't want to be right next to their lot line. It just
But
doesn't make
50
economical
yeah.
sense, nor is it a good neighbor thing to do. So,
At least the 15 feet would seem reasonable, I would think. If the setback is 15 feet all the way around, it would
Right.
certainly be reasonable.
I mean, I don't ever want to promise, but I can't envision even 15 feet being that close. I mean, we've seen some very preliminary concepts, and we are not even close to that. Again, we want it as close to the road. It keeps costs down, easier access, you know, makes the fire department happier.
So it's a 2.5 acre lot, and we're talking about a 650 square foot building?
Yeah, there's
I'd like
actually
to
more
think that
pavement
wouldn't-
than building.
Even with potential wetlands, that's not going to be close to the lot lines, but we'll,
How big is the pump building across the street?
I'm not sure.
Footage-wise, but it's not as big. Yeah, it's not 18 by 36, smaller.
It's small. No, it's a small building.
So actually, that brings up another question. Does a tanker truck deliver chemicals to that building currently?
I'm not sure. Oh,
Not-
go ahead.
Not currently. The contract operator that we have, Veolia, goes to that site frequently to replenish the chemicals. So we're looking to try to avoid that circumstance with the new building. Less frequent trips.
That's the part the DEP doesn't like, the multiple handling of the chemicals.
okay. Comment?
Yep. One more item, as we're talking about setbacks.
Sorry, I know you identified yourself already, but just again, I'm
Will Wallace, 22 Morse Street. We've talked about 15 feet as a setback. I believe this is one of the items that the town will be voting on in the meeting. I would like to just put on the table that perhaps a larger setback on the border to the residential property would be a good thing.
Okay, so again, it's a 2.5 acre site with a 650 square foot building. If the setbacks were larger, 50 feet, would that significantly impact your ability to construct?
Just on that one side where the residents are.
He's saying on these side lots.
I'm
not on
talking the
front.
side yard, not the,
Just one.
not the front yard setback.
Saying just the side, the one side, not the municipal side.
But you can only do side, you can't do
You
one
can't-
side is 15 and one side is 15.
Yeah, you can do side yards or not side yards. So it would have to be on the two side yards that are not street frontage.
But is that even necessary? Because you've said that you want to get it as close to the road, to
We
Upton Road as
do.
possible.
It's not a
but-
question of necessary, it's a question of making sure that it won't get too close.
Yeah.
That's right.
In the future.
Like, if there's an assurance to the neighbors that the building's going to be at least 50 feet away from the lot line, that might make it easier. Again, I don't want to limit you, but it's a small building and it's a relatively large lot. It seems like you have plenty of room there, and 50 feet isn't going to necessarily inhibit your ability.
But it may also have to do with conservation. I mean, the thing is, I think you've been to conservation, and there are only a certain number of places, I assume, on that property which can be built on. Now, I don't know whether the back of the property there is one of those that's, a conservation problem, but I think that's the question as much as anything else. If they can't build back there, they can't build back there. And, and so that was, conservation, I gather, were quite strict about where the building envelope essentially was going to be. Is that correct?
Yeah, anything within 100 feet of the wetlands or the jack straw would have to go in front of the Conservation Commission. I believe we're trying to avoid that.
All right, is there another comment from the public on this? Please.
Hi, Doug Brown, 10 Moore Street. I agree that the setback should be larger with such a large piece of land and a small building. Why wouldn't you make them 25 or 50 feet? Why, if you're 100 feet from the wetlands, why do you have a limit of 0? It seems that it should be at least 25 feet. Probably 40, like the commercial zoning from the street. Obviously, that street needs a sidewalk, and it seems like they could center it without encroaching on the sides. Why make them so tight? It doesn't make sense.
We're not objected to, especially a 25-foot setback.
Plus the height. Why make the height 35 when chances are you only need 20?
But the height is, I believe, is the same as any resident that could build a building. So we're not
Yeah,
exceeding.
but it's not a residential lot, it's a municipal lot, so
Correct.
that's all. Why have everything extreme?
Because if we ever have to do an addition, or we're trying not to
Well, we'll
limit
just deal with that later,
ourselves.
change them later. Why do you want to build so close to the wetlands
I
in the
don't want to
future?
go close to the
Right.
wetlands.
Okay.
So there's no reason to make
Again,
it like
I
that.
prefer to have all the questions go through the chair. I understand your questions. It just, we try to avoid the back and forth between the speakers, and I think she's answered the question, though. I understand the point about 35 feet. Well, I understand that you want flexibility in the future, right? But doesn't seem to me that it's that big, again, it's a
Again, we're not
process.
opposed
To
to
come
a
back
setback.
To come back and
and
redo
just-
this process, I think is valuable for the
As-
neighbors.
But I believe historically, when we've come before the board and we've had previous projects under the former town planner, 0 setbacks was what the proposed.
They've been proposed and approved on other sites, but they've
Correct.
also been proposed and not approved, right? There were recommendations at the library to change the setbacks. So again, I think
All we're
that's the
saying is
point
with
of
all
this
the
hearing,
limits.
right?
Correct.
Okay,
With everything around there, 0 doesn't make sense.
Okay.
25, 40 makes
right,
more
we
sense.
appreciate your point. All right.
Mark,
Yeah.
do we have a time limit on this?
Well, I think we're going to go until we hear a point until we start to hear repetition, if people
Okay.
keep bringing up
That's what we're
new.
hearing.
Okay. Fred, go ahead.
Brad, can you use this microphone, please?
That one doesn't work.
Sure. Fred Leonardo, Community Development Director for the town. Since I'm the zoning enforcement officer, let me just give you a couple of opinions from my perspective for enforcement. First, I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but if it was, and I know it's not a residence, so it's hard to make that comparison. If this was considered an accessory building to a residence, you could actually build up to 5 feet from the rear and sidelines. I know that might not be germane, just to throw that out there. Where you're the board and the way the bylaw reads, in my opinion, I wouldn't even look in them as front, side, and rear. You're allowed to set the setback, whatever you want, on all 4 sides of this thing. So I wouldn't be fixated on that if you set, and in fact, there is no 2 sides. The way the zoning interpretation has been in my 6 years here, you have to define a rear. So I would just set whatever you want to set for the setbacks. Previously, it has been, another point I'll make just generally is that Westborough has a very unique zoning that this actually even has to go to this board. Many towns exempt out municipal lots, period, and you wouldn't even be having this hearing. So just for the general public to understand that this is a discussion in Westborough that's unique to Westborough. There may be other towns that do it, but it's not a common practice. But don't be fixated as a board to set, if you want to set one at 5 and another one at 142, do it. Don't worry about front, side, and rear, but you actually should define which line is which setback. If you're going to do it 15 on all sides, it's pretty straightforward. You don't have to get into that. But in my opinion, if you wanted to set back further from the lot 6, you could do that without affecting the other 3 setbacks if you want to do that. That's certainly a recommendation that's permissible by this board, in my opinion.
Okay, we did have another, I'm really reluctant to stop discussion while people still want to speak, but, so.
Hi, I'm Nate Dubin, 30 Moore Street. So yeah, just a quick thing that, number one, safety is a concern, which we've already talked about. And the other thing is, it's the evaluation of property as well, like as a resident in the neighborhood, homeowner. We have Harvey's dump on one side, and now we'll have this facility on the other side. So it's a big concern to us as well. And then there's the safety. And if there's no other way, then, like Willie Wallace mentioned, if we can push back a little bit farther, maybe considering putting in some trees or something that kind of bury the building so that it's not such an eyesore.
Right,
But,
right. So
yeah.
my impression is that this is actually improving safety compared to what is being done across the street. I also agree with establishing different setbacks. And I appreciate the building commissioner giving us some guidance on that. I do feel like those points have been made already, so if there's somebody else who has something new that they want to express to the board. Thank you. I haven't heard anything on Oak Street, so I think we can move, if anybody cares to make a motion on Oak Street.
What are we setting them at?
Well, Oak Street, I think we were going to use the underlying 25-foot on all sides.
Does that work?
All right, I move that the planning board support the passage of Article 12 as presented by
John,
the...
can I interrupt from a procedural? It may not be Article 12.
13, you're doing 13.
Can we just refer to the name of the article and not the number? Is that adequate?
Yes, you can do that, and,
Motion to
and
approve the
reference
article.
the address, which I
for-
realize I left out of the motion there.
Only because it may not be Article 12, it may be moved up to 11.
Well, at the
or-
moment, it's listed at 13, so that's all I'm saying.
No, 13 is
Okay.
the water treatment, right?
That 13,
Am I reading-
Again,
Jay, am I
that's,
reading the first
can
one?
we, if,
I can
we don't
read
have to worry about the number
For
if
the
we don't reference it in the
PFAS,
motion.
improvements.
Yeah, okay. So I move that the planning board support the passage of the article to establish dimensional zoning regulation for building in M1 District, Department of Public Works site, PFAS improvements, as presented by the Department of Public Works to establish dimensional zoning regulations for a building in the M1 District for the purpose of PFAS improvements, as stated in the town meeting warrant dated September 20th, 2023, with the following requested revision. The planning board recommends the revision of the warrant article to reflect a technical edit to the wording and removal of the term "and site work" from the warrant. As such, the planning board recommends that the warrant be revised to state the following: to see if the town will vote to establish the dimensional regulations as required under Article 5, Use and Dimensional Regulations, Section 5.4, Dimensional Schedule, subsection D, building in the M1 District of the Westborough zoning bylaws for the town-owned property located at 131 Oak Street, further identified on Westborough Assessor Map 33, Parcel 33A, for that portion of the property containing the existing site as shown on a plan entitled Department of Public Works Site PFAS Improvements Dimensional Zoning Regulation, Sheet SK2, dated August 2023, on file with the town clerk. The purpose of establishing these regulations is to create a building envelope to allow the construction of the PFAS improvements building addition and associated site elements within this envelope as shown on the plan noted above. The dimensional regulations for the site, including any required future construction, shall be as follows. Minimum front yard is 25 feet. Is that what we agreed on?
25 feet, yes.
Minimum side yard, 25 feet. Minimum rear yard, 25 feet. Maximum structure height, 60 feet, or take any action thereon.
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this motion? All those in favor? All right, that's 5-0 on the Oak Street article. We've heard from the public Does the board wish to have further discussion on this?
We just need to identify the setbacks.
Well, I think we go on, I don't know if north directional,
You can say abutting the map block and lot number.
yeah, we could do that. So we have the east side is abutting lot 16-29. The north is abutting lot 16-26. The west side is abutting Upton Road, and the south side is abutting Moore Street. I would like to see 50 feet on the parcel abutting 1629, 6 Moore Street. I don't think it needs to be that far on the parcel to the north, because that's, I believe that's Hennessy Field. And I don't believe it needs to be that far on the street frontage. I'd actually like to see the building pulled as close to those streets as possible, but I do want to see some frontage setbacks on those streets, in case the town ever finds the means to put sidewalks in.
Can I just ask a question? Would you object to a 50-foot setback on all the lot lines? You would?
I don't think we want a 50-foot setback on the road.
Okay, I just want to make sure, just wanted to clarify that with
The 50 on
DPW.
the residential side, is that okay? Will that work?
I think we
That's-
can make it work.
Okay.
And 15 on the street?
Yes, all other,
Yeah, 15 on all the other three.
Yeah, 15 on the other three.
Okay, is anybody, any further discussion on that? I'd just like to say, I think I'm appreciative of the sensitivity to our neighbors. I think we all are, and we don't want to see that. We don't want to railroad anybody, but I also don't want to see the town fined. I think there's a limited amount of town-owned land that would even possibly be suitable for this. So I am convinced that this is probably the best site, and because it is improving safety compared to what is already there. Again, I just would like to encourage you to have an open process on this so that the neighbors can have some input on the design, location, drainage, safety measures, and everything else. I realize it's difficult to do public notices, and certainly everybody will get a notice when it goes back to town meeting for funding, but it's important that we keep our taxpayers and neighbors informed. So I do think DPW is well-run and responsive to our neighbors. All right, if anybody is ready to draft a motion on that.
They're just modified to sit.
You can,
setbacks.
yeah, you can use that and then just end with the following revision, and then just list the setbacks that you're recommending.
I move that the planning board support the passage of the article to establish dimensional zoning regulation for building an M1 district water treatment building as presented by the Department of Public Works to establish dimensional zoning regulations for a building in the M1 district for the purpose of a water treatment building as stated in the town meeting warrant dated September 20th, 2023, with the amendment to the setbacks so that they would be minimum front yard 15 feet, minimum side yard abutting, what did we say that was?
Parcel 1629.
Lot 1629, 50 feet. Minimum side yard abutting parcel
1626.
1626, 15 feet, and side lot, or front lot line, front setback abutting Morse Street, 15 feet.
Yeah.
Structure, maximum structure height, 35 feet.
Okay.
that correct?
Can I just, I haven't heard a second yet, so,
Second.
all right. Can I discuss the motion then in the sense that we didn't really discuss the story height? And if 35 feet is not needed, I think we should limit the story height lower than 35 feet.
I disagree.
Why is that?
It's the same height around the entire residential area, and we're doing it for Oak Street, so why are we gonna change it now? Why are we gonna change it now if we already set the standard that Oak Street's gonna do for the surrounding zoning setbacks? We're already making concessions on these setbacks. 35 feet should be fine,
I
especially
don't know that
if
we're
it's-
making concessions, and, the point is, if they don't need to build, if the building they're proposing is
We didn't-
15 feet tall,
18 feet.
18 feet tall, then why do we need to set the maximum?
Because you just did it for Oak Street at 60 feet.
But it's a completely different part of town.
It doesn't matter. We just set the standard for it.
Yeah, well, I
So
think...
now we're doubling back.
Well, I think it does matter.
Yeah,
If
one
they
of the
need a
things-
building higher
yeah.
than 18 feet in this location, I think they should have to come back and explain why.
I'm okay lowering it to 25 feet. That gives them plenty of wiggle room if the building proposed is 18 feet right now.
All right,
I
so...
just feel like that, your point should have been brought up before reading that motion in the future. But if it's fine with engineering and DPW, then fine.
Oh, we can work with 25 feet, because I think that the difference between 18 and 25 provides a factor of safety, and that's my concern, that if you were proposing 18 feet, that gives us zero leeway to progress through final design and
Well, I
accommodate
saw
a
that.
change.
Yeah, I've
So-
seen that before. At Hastings, we had a problem with the story height, and we had to amend it to put, I think it was Hastings, to allow air conditioning units on the top. Fred will probably remember that, but
Yeah,
but
my
I think
concern-
25 feet gives you some leeway.
All right, yeah, my concern is that if storing with chemicals, there may be specific air conditioning or some kind of fans or things that they're going to need, and so that the building, it may be 18 feet, but they may need more because of the type of storage that they're doing. So that would be my only concern about that particular building.
Can I ask Fred a question? Fred, does mechanical equipment impact the building height? Is mechanical equipment factored into the building height, or is it just roof line?
Fred Lenaro, Community Development Director. No, typically it doesn't, but, it gets difficult here because you are setting the height, so you're not talking about typical zoning.
But in terms of your definition of building height, is mechanical equipment on top of the roof factored into the building height?
Not typically, no.
So my point, my feeling on that is I'd rather see a 700 square foot building than a 35 foot tall building there, right? Like if they need more room for mechanical, the difference between 650 and 750 is not a lot on a lot the size, but I think a taller building, that people have to drive by every day that would bother me if I were a neighbor. So that's my point. From a procedural standpoint, we had a motion, we had a second. Can we amend that motion? Do we have to vote on that motion and then re-motion it if that motion fails?
You can suggest an amendment, and then I can accept the amendment since it's my motion.
Okay, well, I'm suggesting an amendment to change the maximum story height to 25 feet.
I will accept that motion, or that
Okay.
amendment.
Do we have
Second.
second? Okay. All right. Complicated. Hopefully Kristen got the motion all written down, and we do have recordings to make sure that this gets done right. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All right, that's 5-0. Thank you all for coming in. I will ask everyone, if you have conversations or questions, please take them out in the hallway. We have extremely long agenda in front of us, and I'd like to get through it as quickly as we can. All right. Next item on the agenda is town manager presentation on the proposed community center and voter recommendation. Kim, are you making the presentation? So Kim, I'll just ask you to identify yourself for the public and then kick off.
Okay. Kimberly Foster, I'm the Assistant Town Manager, and I'm here tonight to give you a very brief, I understand you don't want my 35-minute slide deck, brief presentation on the community center, the proposed community center, specifically related to Articles 3 and Articles 3 and 4 in the warrant. So am I correct? Are you just looking for a brief overview and then an
Please.
opportunity to ask
Yeah.
questions? Okay. So the select board with town staff has been considering the potential purchase of the property located at 1500 Union Street, also known as the Boston Sports Club building, for several months now. The select board made this public at their meeting on September 12th. And this is now what you're seeing as Articles 3 and 4 on the warrant. So I think, as you are aware, there are several guiding documents which underscore the community's interest in a community center. Specifically, there's a lot of words up here, but the ones that I pulled relate to the master plan, related to the open space recreation goal. It speaks to investigating the feasibility of constructing and operating a multi-use community center. The master plan had a public facilities goal, exploring the potential for a community and a recreation center, and then to also evaluate the need to expand the town's senior center. The last one we pulled from the master plan relates to economic development, specifically promoting mixed-use development in and around Bay State Common, exploring the potential for incorporating more entertainment-driven uses for youth in the larger community, as well as, I think, enhancing the use of the existing common. So our intention is to purchase the building with town meeting's approval and turn it into a community center. The purchase price is $8.8 million. This equates to approximately $139 per square foot. We've pulled, based on estimates of other recently constructed public buildings, keeping in mind there are additional costs for public construction. New construction, we estimate, would cost approximately $800 per square foot. The one thing I want to be clear is this is the purchase price. We have identified the need, particularly for the first floor of the facility, which we're proposing be used as a senior center, to be fit up, as it is pretty much a blank canvas right now, wide open space. The proposal identifies the second floor, which is currently Boston Sports Club operates out of there. It's a facility filled with gym equipment. We are not purchasing the equipment, but what that leaves is a very large open space, as well as designated. There's a pool. I have some pictures that I'll get to. There's a pool, there's a basketball court, but the idea would be for the recreation department to move into that space and to operate recreation programming, to expand its programming. Right now, they don't have any dedicated space. The schools are great partners, but there are certain times of year when it's very challenging to run recreation programming in the schools just because of the school's activities. So $8.8 million, we do recognize that that is a hefty price tag. Again, comparing it to the cost for new construction, significantly lower cost. However, We do recognize that that's still an estimated impact on the average single-family tax bill between $84 and we estimate $113 at its peak for the 20-year period of the loan, the borrow. We would borrow for the purchase. And again, that is strictly the purchase price. So as I mentioned, the proposed plan relocates the rec department to the second floor, would relocate the senior center to the first floor from its existing location. And then our intention would be to engage the community in a process to build out the interior to meet the needs of the senior center, as well as additional community uses. So the current senior center is about 86,000 plus square feet. As I mentioned in, I think I have it, I might have pulled that slide out. The lower level of this building is about 31,000 square feet. So it is significantly larger, but in our recently completed senior needs assessment, we do identify the need for effectively some inadequacies in the current building, both in terms of the amount of space and the ability of that space to support programming and service needs. So this just shows a couple of photos of the interior of a couple of spaces upstairs. We would look at operating expanded hours. So right now we're proposing 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. during the week, Saturday hours, likely closed Sunday. This would be supported by recreation department staff as well as some additional programming staff. The model that we have right now, many of the recreation department programs fund themselves through fees. They cover their costs through fees. So we envision expanding this model, being able to offer more programming that has fees. So many of the programmatic costs would not be an additional impact to the taxpayer. We've talked about the property purchase price. Following were the town to move forward with the purchase. The Article 4 seeks funding to do a public engagement process, leading to some design work and also to fund due diligence. Again, we have committed to community engagement, charrette, to really understand what the community is looking for that space to support. Talked about the impact on taxes for the purchase. This just further breaks down some of the costs that are in Article 4. Our estimate from a architect is $85,000 for that community engagement and schematic design portion. We are also estimating some of the maintenance and utility costs based on looking at other town buildings and working with a variety of estimates there. And then our due diligence, just related to some further due diligence before the town enters into the final agreement. I want to jump ahead to the proposed timeline. So the board expects to execute the purchase and sale agreement at its meeting next Tuesday. Then October 16th, town meeting would vote to authorize the board to acquire the property as well as to borrow the funds to purchase the $8.8 million. Late fall, early winter, we anticipate that community engagement portion, and then to identify what we're looking to do to fit up the lower level. One thing I didn't mention, we anticipate that the recreation department could move into that second story and begin operating pretty close to after closing. There wouldn't need to be much work done up there in terms of fit up. So if we anticipate closing on the property in the spring of 2024, we're looking at our fiscal 25 starts July 1 of 2024. We anticipate that recreation could be operating out of there by fiscal 25. So then we would anticipate coming back in the fall of 2024, seeking funding to do that fit up, and then beginning construction of that first level, converting it to space that would support a senior center in late 2024 and early 2025. I know that was quick. I know there may be many other questions, just so you are aware and so the public is aware. On the town's website, homepage under Town News, there is a section dedicated to all of the materials and the presentations that have been made at various other boards and committees, the select board meeting. There is also an FAQ document that goes through many of the questions that have come up and been asked. So anybody looking for additional information, you can read it. There are recordings of meetings available. So certainly plenty of information out there.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kim. Questions from the board?
No, I'll hold my questions till I've had a chance to look at the website. My particular questions, yeah.
Well, yeah, if you have questions, we're being asked to make
Oh, all right.
a vote of recommendation, so I would say if we're going to vote, we should be
all right.
informed.
The one question I had is what's going to happen to the present senior center, which I would like to see that property made into affordable housing, maybe something like what's on Rogers Road, which we desperately need more of. And selling that property to a developer, will that not offset some of the costs on this?
Yes. So yes, that is, we anticipate that we would look to dispose of the senior center property. And one option is certainly, interest has been expressed in using it for that purpose. But any proceeds from the sale of that property could be used to eventually offset. It would come into the sale of real estate account with the town, and yes, it could offset the costs.
I've heard positive feedback about the project, but I've also heard some negative feedback based on just the tax, dollar. Everyone's kind of strapped. I think in the last couple meetings, town meetings, there's been a lot of discussion about taxes going up. And I think we need to take that into consideration with a project like this.
I'm going to start by saying I think this is a great opportunity, and I think something that can serve all generations in town together is something that's just going to do wonders for building Westborough's community. I understand the concern for the taxes, but I think this is one of the opportunities where we can invest in our community and get something out of it for significantly less than if we had to build it from scratch. Having the location downtown, walkable to the schools, plenty of parking for people who want to drive, really allowing for the programming to just be expanded is going to serve so many people in the community. So I'm in support of this. The one question I have is, what is the annual obligation for being part of Bay State Commons? Is that plowing, insurance, any kind of
My understanding,
fees?
the developer is going to be doing the plowing.
So the town's not going to be
The current
responsible for
owner
any of that
Bay
kind of
State
stuff?
Commons is, am I wrong on that, Kim?
There are costs associated with that.
Oh,
so,
there are, okay. What-
Yes. I can, give me a second and I can find what we're estimating.
So I just need to say, this is not a public hearing. I'm not allowing public comments. If you have a public comment, it should be taken up at town meeting. This is purely a discussion amongst the board. So,
Or if they could take, there is another information session being held, I believe, later this week. So if there are any comments
excellent.
people would like to make, they certainly could go to
The
that.
information session is Thursday at 1:30, and it's intended more for questions and answers versus comments. So certainly if people have questions, it's 1:30 at the senior center.
1:30 at the senior
Yep,
center.
on Thursday, the
This
5th.
Thursday. And town meeting is October 16th, 7 o'clock. Is that right?
6:30, I think.
6:30?
What time is it?
7.
Oh, it's not till 7. Oh, okay.
We usually get there half an hour early. More questions for Kim?
Yeah.
She was going to answer my question.
There is, we would enter into a common area maintenance agreement with the developer that would cover a portion of the property. The part I neglected to mention, we'd be purchasing the building and some of the parking. I think I cut that slide out around the building, equating to about 2.5 acres. So the common area maintenance agreement would cover maintenance, things like plowing, shoveling of sidewalks, things like that,
So
so,
the town is going to buy the land as well?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
And how much parking is going to be associated with the building?
Let me open my other presentation, and I can at least give you a visual. I don't know that I have the count.
It just, my concern is that the town's rushing into this and hasn't done proper due diligence on trying to buy this building. Estimated construction cost at over $800 a foot is just, it's so out of whack. And I understand the town has prevailing wages and all that stuff, but there's no way it's over $800 a foot.
That
And-
number actually came from Upton, which just built a community center, and that was the cost of
Yeah, and
the
it's-
cost per square foot.
I get it, but it's still, like every public project that's done, it's just almost like a misuse of funds, because that's not what construction
Yeah,
costs
but
are.
isn't that the point of buying a building that's already built?
No, I know that, but what I want the public to know is that those facts are misleading.
Well,
It's not necessarily $800 a foot,
well, you,
and.
well, you
and-
say that, but if Upton just built one for $800 a square foot, what is it going to be by the time we build it at State Hospital, which I don't even think is where everybody wants it?
It's more the fact, Mark, that those are facts for, I guess, public municipal buildings, but
Well, it's
Anyone else-
ridiculous.
it's
It's
ridiculous.
ridiculous that the towns have to pay so much more than private developers. I agree with that. But that's unfortunately,
so there probably, is there not a better way to try to figure out whether it's maybe, can you
yeah, well,
enter
that's a
into
little
lease?
outside of this discussion, but the better way in this
This is the-
discussion is to buy a building that's already constructed.
And then, but you're buying a building that's already constructed, yet we don't know the cost to fit it out. So typically, when you'd buy a building, you'd underwrite those costs. You'd have an idea of what those costs are going to be. So now we're just going to spend 8.8 million and not know what that is.
Yeah, but I think the point of this is to have public outreach after we decide, if this article is approved, have public outreach to decide what we want to see in there, right? It's awfully hard to say it's going to be X dollars per square foot until we know what the public wants in that building. Do they just want, meetings rooms? Do they want another gym? Do they want an indoor track? Or, I mean,
do
these
we
are
have
all
these
things I've heard about potential, a stage, right? Art
Yeah,
rooms. I
all
mean,
that's nice, but I feel like that's where you have this beforehand. It's no different than with the master plan. Before you implement it, you have to have the meetings and you put the plan together and you have to understand how the whole process works. But now we have to go up in town meeting and vote on a $8.8 million purchase where we had a movie theater that they could have done this at. And look how that went. And now we're going to buy this for 8.8 and not even know the cost to even construct the inside of it.
do
Yeah,
we
John,
have, do we have an estimate on the cost to fit up?
We do not.
We do not, okay.
I just would like to raise the question, or raise the point. The Bay State Commons was recently bought by a new entity. And I think this has been fairly recent that this has come up. So it isn't like we had 2 years to think about buying this building and the cost of fitting it up. Sometimes you kind of have to take a leap with some unknown things that we're dealing with. And I think this is one of those unusual situations where you can't say, we want a community center at Chauncey Lake, and we're going to do, 2 years worth of due diligence and figure out how big the building should be, what it needs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But this was just one of those unusual things that happened because of change in ownership. And
Which
so-
I totally understand, and
So
I
I
bet at the
think-
end of the day, this
Yeah.
will be cheaper, is less expensive. But to take a leap of faith with taxpayer dollars is not what the town should be doing.
Yeah,
The
but
town
I-
should be
all
doing
right,
its due
Chris-
diligence prior.
Christy Williams, town manager, has some comments on this. I have more comments too, but go ahead.
Just to your question, and to what Hazel said, the purchase is time sensitive. So this is an opportunity that's come to the town. We have the opportunity to bring it to town meeting. It's a time sensitive offer. It's not something that's going to come back. If it's voted down, the price isn't going to change. It's a time sensitive offer. It has to go before town meeting in October. So we did not have the opportunity to do that public engagement ahead of time. We actually wouldn't have been able to anyway, because the public engagement process is estimated to cost $85,000. So we would have had to come to town meeting to ask for that. It would have extended the time period. I think one point is that depending on what the fit up is, and certainly the town will contribute to that concept, we have identified available funds that would pay for that. So we're not sort of blindly going into this purchase and then anticipating raising taxes to do the fit up, because we know that we're able to use that second floor immediately. There probably will be some things that we're going to do to based on the community feedback, maybe a walking track has come up, different things. And then the fit up of the whole downstairs, we think, we could do it with available funds. The reason I say probably is that if you start adding second stories within, a second story or multiple elevators or things like that, that's something that is obviously going to raise the cost significantly. But that's if you just want to put rooms in that lower level and a commercial kitchen to house the seniors, we believe we can do that with available funds. So
Can I also say, the building is a shell that is going to need to be fitted out anywhere, but you're buying the prime location. The upstairs has a pool already installed, a basketball court already installed, which would be excessively expensive if you want to put in a new building. So I kind of, I don't know how I feel about Hazel's say a leap of faith, because it's not necessarily a leap of faith. It's a shell of a building that you can easily fit out, and you would have to fit out any kind of building that way anyway. And you've already got infrastructure that would be really expensive in there.
Listen, I agree. I think it's the best fit, but I don't think the process is the best way about going about it.
So I think there's really just one, one question you have to ask yourself as a voter, do I want a community center where we bring the seniors and all the town, it's accessible to the entire town, it serves multiple needs, it's not going to serve every need we have, but it's going to serve, it's going to have a little something for everyone, I think. So if you want a community center, I think this is a better option than building new up at State Hospital. But
I'm
more
not saying it, but
importantly,
I'm saying it's the
because of
process.
the locate,
But the process is kind of a non-factor, because
It's
the process
definitely a
wasn't,
factor.
but it wasn't possible. This opportunity presented itself, and the town is jumping at it, trying to grab that opportunity. There wasn't an opportunity to do the public input and still get this building.
Yeah, the process may be a factor for you, John, but I'm comfortable with the way this process has worked. I think there's been incredible transparency on it, and I really feel like this is an opportunity to have a community center downtown in a I think a great location for it. It meets 10 tenets of the master plan. It's mentioned several times in the master plan.
And one of the things with the library that everyone had a problem with is that there was no parking. It's going to have plenty of parking, and walkable, and access to public transit.
Kim, did you have a number on the parking?
I don't have a number, but I did pull up the slide. So that shows you the area in red is the area that the town is purchasing. We will have a reciprocal easement agreement with the developer, so we will have access to parking spaces in the rest of the plaza, as well as if there are other events going on in the plaza, they will have access to those spaces. And I did find on page 4 of the FAQ, the estimated common area maintenance agreement costs are estimated at just under $160,000. And there's a list of what's included in that.
And how are we going to be paying for that? Is that going to be through fees? Or just, we have to appropriate that every year?
Is that going to be in the respective budgets of the,
Yeah, that would be in the operating budget.
so will that be a separate department, community center department, or will that be
Right
split
now,
up
our
between the
building-
rec department and the senior? You don't
Right
know
now,
yet.
those are in the DPW budget and the facilities budget.
I see.
We've centralized those
That
in
makes
recent
sense, too.
years.
Okay.
And then there are some things that will offset. So for instance, if we did sell the senior center, they've got about a $58,000 maintenance line, I believe. So
So
where
that
that
would go
building to
away.
be sold, yeah, that offsets.
Okay.
This might be challenging to answer, but what percentage of the community do you think will be using this building?
It's available to 100%. We heard, the one thing I didn't get into a lot of the detail, but in addition to the goals laid out in the master plan, our recently completed senior needs assessment spoke to an interest in a community center that has designated space for seniors, as well as the nature of the space that we're talking about in the recreation on the second floor. So we heard from a large number of seniors in the community that they are interested in this type of a facility. So I can't tell you exactly what percentage, but we've heard going back to, I think, 2012, when the plans for this building's renovation initially included, the gym was taken out. There were plans to build a gym related to the recreation facility. That obviously didn't happen. And then there have been, through the strategic plan, a community center came up as something of interest. So there's just been a number of plans going back over a decade now where there's a very high level of interest expressed.
I would say, Pete, if somebody is trying to decide whether they would use it or not, they should go to the public sessions and say, I want to see this in that community center, so that that would appeal to me. I mean, that. they'll
No,
have
I
that
just,
opportunity.
I just want to make sure. This is a once in maybe a lifetime opportunity for the town. I get that. But I also know this is going to increase everyone's taxes in town. So I want to make sure that we're making a building that is going to be used by the vast amount of people in town. I do understand having this building in the downtown region with parking is very rare. So I just want to make sure that we create a building.
Yeah, I think it's
that's
important that
being
it be a
used.
community center and not a rec center or an art center or a senior center. It should have elements of all of those
And I think
more.
that's going to
So-
come down to the programming as well. You know, the programming is going to be what attracts different segments of the population. And so if there's appropriate programming across, the senior center or the upstairs, you have an opportunity to attract 100% of the residents.
I think that one of the other things to think about is the fact that the present senior center really isolates the seniors from the rest of the downtown community. And I think this is one of the things that people have complained about, is the fact that, if you're a senior, a lot of seniors are just driving, may not drive much. This will allow them to go to a facility which is easy to get to, even by car. And I think that that's very important. And the other thing that people said we're really lacking in this town is someplace for teens and kids to go after school to do things. And if we can find the kind of programming, which I'm sure we can, within this community to attract kids, is going to make a huge difference to the kids and the families in town, as well as the downtown area. So I think looking at those two ends of the population, I believe that between the ends, they will also participate. So I'm looking at what the master plan really came out with, which was seniors and also the teens and school-age children, which there are not activities for them to get to after school.
I have one question. Christy, when you guys went through the process and you had these different ideas of what could go on the first floor, whether it's, call it offices or community center, senior center space, with your experience in building out other municipal buildings, like what would be the cost per square foot to build out the space? Because if it is to build new construction, $800 per square foot, and you have a building, let's just say maybe it costs you $300 to build out this space, that's another 9 million to build out the first floor. So my concern is that, what's that cost going to be? Is it going to cost just as much as buying the building?
Well, yeah, but even in that scenario, right, you're talking 300 plus $139 a square foot to buy it? It's far cheaper than building new.
Mark, that's not the point. The point is that everyone's taxes are going to go up by $100. And now, it might cost another 9 million.
Right.
I'm just putting out a number.
Okay,
It costs
but,
double.
well, and
So now it's
I've
200.
heard her say that they're hoping to fund the fit-up without coming back for raise and appropriation or borrowing.
But if it costs 800 to build new, and then, so what is the cost? Because if it's even half of that.
Christie, do you want to answer that?
It's a legitimate question.
No,
I don't have an answer.
Yeah,
I don't have an answer on the square footage. I think one of the things to keep in mind, though, is that all of the systems are already there. So when you're thinking about a ground-up build, nothing is there. So, we have and because it is a shell, I don't think, you probably didn't see the video because I don't think that we thought we would have this much time on the agenda, but, when you look at it, you really can see that it's a very wide open space with full availability to really just put up walls. I mean, there's a faux ceiling, and you could just add on to that. But I don't have an answer to your question. We don't anticipate it to being as much as you're concerned it will be.
As a person who works in real estate, commercial real estate, and has plenty of projects that we built from shell spaces, it's probably cost maybe $100 a foot for just that shell space. But that's on if you're like a private developer. So if it's the town, I just want to be able to anticipate those costs. Like if I'm, as a resident, that's my concern is.
Sure.
Great, like you're buying a building at below replacement cost, get it. That's awesome. It's in a great area. It checks all the boxes, but that's another big factor that I think a lot of people are just overlooking. That eventually, I do think we'll have to go back to town meeting to get more funds.
Okay, so I disagree that we're overlooking it, but I think it's a fair question, and so we'll look into it.
Any more questions from the board? All right, do we have a draft motion, or does somebody want to make a motion on this? Do we need to motion each article, or can we motion them jointly?
I think you can motion them collectively if you want, unless the board feels like the vote would be different.
Yeah, what are the multiple ones?
One is to fund the public process, and there's two articles. Article 3, I think, is the article to purchase it, and then Article 4 is to see if the town will vote to transfer, we have a number? You had a number,
We
right?
can just read the title, can't we? Like we did with the other one?
Right. You can read the title,
So
but
it's Article 3 and Article 4?
Yeah, all we have to do is support the articles. We don't have to do
So-
anything beyond that.
Article 4, we're estimating it will be just under $200,000, and that's a free cash.
right, because there's not a specific number in the
Right, so I'll just use the
draft
title.
warrant as a, go ahead.
I move that the planning board,
I think you should read them separately.
do both of them separately?
Yes.
Okay. I move that the planning board recommend approval of the article titled Community Center Property Acquisition 12 Union Street. Is that sufficient?
Second,
Okay, any discussion of that motion? All those in favor? All those opposed? That's 4-1 in favor.
I move the planning board support the article entitled Community Center Due Diligence, Operating Costs, Community Engagement, and Design.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Question about process. Should I have said on the warrant dated so-and-so? Okay.
Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor? All those opposed? That's also 4-1. All right. Okay. It's 8:30, and I believe we are running a little behind, but the next item on the agenda is Westborough Affordable Housing Trust presentation on the town meeting warrant articles. Ed, I would ask you to keep this as brief as possible.
For a plug.
Kristen, do we have any minutes? Do we have minutes?
Yes, we didn't vote on them last meeting. The 5th.
Okay, good evening. I'm Ed Bain, 5 Thomas Rice Drive in Westborough, and I am the chair of the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust. And I'm here this evening to ask the planning board's support for Articles 14 and 15 on the upcoming fall town meeting warrant. Basically, the trust is looking to do more work. There have been, there's 2 articles, and I'm going to speak to both of them, 14 and 15, because they're completely interrelated. The main goal is to revitalize what's known as the Housing Partnership Committee, which has been defunct for quite a while. And that needs to appoint a full committee, start to have regular meetings, activity, et cetera, and to integrate the partnership with the current town processes, permit guidance, resources for affordable housing, funding, things like that, and also to avoid duplication of services. So basically, and I'm going to get into it a little bit more, we're doing a little bit of a combination of the Affordable Housing Trust with the Housing Partnership Committee. The 2 articles basically just put into, by changing bylaws, allow this to happen, allow the committee, the trust to, I use the word subsume, although the committee will remain independent, but probably will have a number of members from the trust. Okay, so the partnership original mission was to encourage continued availability, well-designed, well-built, affordable homes so that people of economic levels can find a home in Westborough. And their job was different from the trusts in that they would help local developers. So if somebody came in and said, I want to do a development, I know I need to do affordable units within that in order to get it passed, and I need help in making sure that I understand all the resources, both in the actual town process as well as resources that I may be able to call upon from the state to help fund such a project. And that was there. So their side was to assist developers versus the committee, the trust side, which is we're more like a real estate investment trust. We try to find projects, fund them, get a developer, and develop it. Okay, so basically what we're looking to do is, first of all, on Article 14, is we do a bylaw amendment, which is the trusts. This is a section in the bylaws that is appropriate for the trust or speaks to the trust. And basically, we're asking to authorize the select board to serve as the appointing authority for the housing partnership for the town,
where the town may appoint a housing partnership committee either as committee of the whole of the trust or as a subcommittee comprised of trustees. So we're just asking the select board to say, okay, create or reinvigorate this housing committee, and the trust will make sure that it's run. We'll recruit, we'll be part of it, et cetera. We'll work hand in hand. Article 15 is we need to amend the town charter, which speaks to some of the select board's ability to delegate appointing authority. And what it does is it does restrict, or it doesn't give that up completely. It still keeps it within the select board's purview, if you will. And at any point, they can pull that authority back if they so want. So this isn't anything we're doing permanently. So the reason for doing this, it basically allows the select board to delegate and revoke appointing authority for the Housing Partnership Committee to the Affordable Housing Trust. So they're sort of delegating it, but they're not losing that ability. It's merely a delegation. And empowers the trust to appoint and or serve as that partnership committee, if and only if the board votes to delegate. The select board, as I mentioned, may revoke this designation at any time. When we look at other towns on our dashboard, the ones that have combined trusts and housing partnership committees, you can see the list there. I don't need to read it, that are combined. Majority are. There's a few that are separate, and there's a couple that don't have a housing trust. So the benefits allows the trust to function as a housing partnership committee until residents can be recruited and trained. And we also have, we currently have possibly one project in the works where a developer came looking to do a development. I can't speak too much to it. And we were called in only because we could provide some guidance on, if you build this, and even build a little bit more, you have available to use certain state programs, which the developer was saying, oh, well, that sounds interesting. So we've already started down that just because there is no housing committee at the current time. And it helps ensure the town has an operational effective housing partnership committee and avoids duplication. So we're trying to make sure that everybody from an individual developer all the way through to the housing trust is operating in a, if you will, effective and collaborative manner.
So this is just a hold off until you find a resident to take, it's your first bullet point, until residents can be recruited and trained. So are you actively looking for residents?
Yes.
To actively?
Well, if this passes, yes, we would be looking for additional people. The housing partnership sort of jumps into action, if you will, when a developer approaches the town with a project. So the amount of work they do is much less than what we've been doing as a trust. So the commitment is different.
Okay.
Does that answer?
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. But you're going to be actively, that's going to be a process, because it seems like allows the trust to function as housing partnership committee until residents can be recruited. So is that you're going to find residents to recruit, and then does that then take over the responsibility of what you're doing?
I think there'll still be people that are on the housing partnership committee that are also on the trust. And the reason for that is there are navigating through subsidy programs, affordable housing programs within the state, like with Mass Housing, with now the EOHLC, which used to be the DHCP. You want to have a shared body of knowledge in that and be able to keep up to date on all the recent regs and programs, be they state, federal, et cetera. So, which benefits whether the trust is doing something or an individual developer or a private developer is doing something. So I wouldn't see that it would eventually be spun back off.
Okay.
That's not the vision right now. It may come to be. And that's up to the select board.
Okay.
I have a procedural question. It was my understanding, maybe I'm mistaken, charters can only be amended through a charter commission or a special act of the legislature. Are we going through either one of those processes?
I don't know.
I don't want to vote on this and can't actually.
No,
vote.
as far as I know, we're doing bylaws on, just go back here, we're doing,
Article 15 is amend the town charter, though. That's not bylaws.
Christie leaves just at the right time.
I could be mistaken. Maybe we can amend it.
I'm not sure. As it gets into that level of legality of can merely town meeting do this? I would ask that you support it pending, assuming that it is doable. Now, this has gone through, obviously, I believe town council has reviewed the whole.
I have an answer for
Yeah,
it.
do you have an answer?
So Article 15 is to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to petition the general court for this change.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you are,
So
you are
you're
right.
right. Good point. Questions?
I have no questions. I think it's a logical move, to be honest.
Yeah.
All right. If there's no other questions,
Are we voting to recommend approval on these two articles? Is that what is being asked?
That's what our request is
know
that
how we're
you,
voting yet?
Is that what we're
Somebody
being
wants to
asked to
make
vote
it-
on?
that's what I'm asking. We would very much appreciate the planning board's support
It's
for these
support,
two
not
articles.
recommendation. We're just supporting the article, I think, is all we.
Okay.
I mean, that's
We can
what I
make a
would see to do.
recommendation to the town meeting to
Yeah.
pass the article. I mean, that's,
At town meeting,
however you
if,
want to phrase the motion.
I don't know, I usually support
All right.
whatever.
I move that the planning board, can I do them together? Or do you want them separately?
Well, so this isn't technically a planning board report as it would be for a zoning article, so I think it's appropriate to do them together. I'm just essentially going to draft a letter that reflects the vote that you're supporting these articles.
And are these the actual article numbers, or should I use the title?
they are as of today, and that's been the signed off. What Christie was showing her, you
Maybe
were seeing a
just-
little
Maybe
bit
just
ago.
refer to
Yeah,
the
okay.
Westborough.
Yeah, it's 14 and 15.
I move that the planning board recommend approval of Article 14 to amend the general bylaws for the Affordable Housing Trust and Article 15 to amend the town charter for the Housing Partnership Committee appointing authority.
Second.
Any discussion of that motion? All those in favor? And that's 5-0 in favor. Thank you, Ed.
All right,
We'll
thank you
see
very, very much.
See you at
Appreciate
town
it.
meeting. I'd like to thank everybody for your patience. I know it's been a long meeting. Next item on the agenda, we have a continuation of the public hearing to modify the commercial component of the special permit TOV for Village Commons at 1 Gleason Street, and we also have an update on 1 Gleason special permit for Village Commons, which, Farouk, if you could just come up and identify your team. Jenny, do you have any remarks on this to start?
I can make my remarks after the update. Most of my remarks are going to be pertaining to the existing special permit.
Okay, so Farouk, you have a presentation on some of the questions you had?
Yes, I had given my input. My name is Farouk Ansari. I'm, a manager of the trust. I had provided answers briefly over the telephone to Kristen this morning, and I think if you were to go over to where the answers are, I don't know if you want me to go through line by line, but some of the work has already been completed and some is remaining. Right here, number one, the dumpster enclosure, the gentleman that's going to do that job said because of the rain, he lost a few days, but the material is sitting there. He's going to be there tomorrow afternoon or Thursday to start, and maybe it'll take another day to finish it. Number two, install construction.
Ferg, have you determined where the opening's going to be? Because there was a question as to where it was going to open, and I think the residents had some comments about where the open side would be for the trucks to come in and pick up the dumpsters.
Yeah, that has been agreed upon by talking to the residents, and they want to keep two dumpster thingies. So we're going to end up with a gate, two gates in front of it. But I have to get the enclosure complete before I can,
Okay,
order
I
the
just
gate.
wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, that's under
okay, that had
control,
been
yes.
clarified. Thank you.
And item number 2, construction fencing ASAP around the equipment and construction debris. Now, I don't know if I should be doing that fencing right now. This project is not even approved yet. And I am willing to do the fencing to protect, the people that are living there from getting towards the construction site. But I think it might be a little bit too soon to be doing that. Once the approval is in my hand from the planning board, then before the construction starts, I'll be more than happy to provide that fencing to make sure that everybody's comfortable there. You still need to provide an engineering solution. Yeah, I've talked to Lisa about it. I thought we had a solution, but she wants to come out and look at it. She was away for a couple of weeks. She was out of commission, so she said she'll come out and talk to us. So I have written an email this morning, and she already replied to me on that. Number 4 is the mark out of the valve. That has been done today. It's completed. That item is complete. Engineering had questions on the landscape. That plan is in my hand. I received that today and has been passed on to our engineering, to WDA, who in turn will send it to whoever they want to send it to. I think it must be to Jenny, unless you already got it from WDA.
I believe I did see something come in. I just hadn't had a chance to review it.
Okay. Number 6 is, did you get a response from the building department? I did not get a direct response from the building department, but I think what I proposed to you the other day about doing that, I had not heard anything to the contrary. All I had heard from the building department was, as long as it's to the code, yeah, okay, and that is to the code, so we'll take care of that. That's a little ramp in front of that clubhouse. That's what we are talking about. It's a very, very simple thing, but it will be done most likely this week. Did you get a response from, okay, then it's my understanding that the paving will be done. Paving. Yesterday, they started milling Zara Gardens, Zara Drive, and they're planning on paving Zara Drive this week. They have not given me a date yet, but they said this week. There's only 4 days left, but they said they'll do it this week, so I took their word for it. And then after that, they're planning on going over to Village Commons and then trying to get that paved. I still don't have a date. I call them every day, but it's very, very difficult to get these paving people after. I've been after them for like 3-4 months now. So I'm hoping that Village Commons will be done this month. Once I have the date, I'll pass it on to Jenny. That's basically it.
Okay. Questions, comments from the board on?
I'm okay with the fence not being installed until the plan is
Absolutely, yeah.
approved.
Yeah, so I'm just going back to the letter that we sent you in July. The final landscaping plan shall be submitted to the planning board and design review board no later than August 1st. And you're telling me we may have gotten it today, we don't even know. Now, let me finish. Dumpster enclosure shall be installed no later than September 1st. That's still not in, right?
It took me 6 weeks to get the materials.
In reference to the issue of ponding water at the clubhouse patio and walkway, an engineered solution needs to be submitted to DPW for review no later than September 1st.
We're working on that with Lisa.
Farouk, how many times are you going to come in here and tell me, yeah, it'll happen tomorrow or maybe the next day, and then it's 2 months later and it's still not done? I'm sorry, I'm a little frustrated with
Please don't get frustrated.
this repetitive.
There is no other solution to what it is there today. I know Lisa wants to come out and look at it. That is an engineering solution that's in place right now. The water is flowing. There is no issue there at all about water puddling. The water was puddling last year, and we put that swale in there, and that swale is in carrying the water right down to the drain. However, we had used as a trial last year of using 3/4-inch stone in the swale. And that stone is not big enough. When the water is really, really heavy, some of that in the initial part of it gets swept. So we're going to replace that with a larger stone. When I wrote that email to Lisa, she says, don't put any larger stone just yet. Let me, come out and look at it.
Okay, so Farouk, when we asked you to provide an engineered plan by September 1st, right? Was that when you put the 3/4-inch stone, and who was the engineer that approved that? Where's the engineered plan? Now you want to put larger stone. We've already heard from the town engineer that that's not appropriate. So it sounds to me like you still don't have an engineered solution there. Lisa, did you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I just was going to say that to the state, we still haven't received any proposal, written proposal on what you want to do. The stone has helped, but in my opinion, that's a temporary solution. That's not a good long-term solution for the homeowners when they have to take over. So we're looking for a better solution. But it's not up to me, I'm more than happy to go out there and talk about things, especially with, the engineer or whatever. But it's for you to propose what your engineer thinks is a good solution. It's not appropriate for me to design this project for you.
I have talked to my engineer. He came and looked at it, and he thought, he said if there's an issue, we have to solve that issue. There is no issue there. The water is flowing through the swale fine, but there is a drain at the bottom of it. It's through the drain, under drain runs all the way across, and the water gets carried out. We had tremendous amount of rains. I think everybody agrees with that for the past 3 or 4 months. Did we have an issue with one drop of water staying over there with the patio? No. So if you still want to change it to something else, that's a different story. I can ask the engineer to see if they can, what else can we do there other than putting a drain, a real drain. There are so many wires, it's such a small project. Running through their land, it will be, not to the best to do that. Right now, you guys can come and look at it. There is no issue there, other than the fact that we just have to change the stone to be a little bit larger so that it doesn't get swept away. That's about it. But I can do it again.
Okay.
And meet with her.
Again, my point is more along the lines of, at what point do these deadlines actually mean something to you? Because it doesn't feel like they mean a thing. Like, I don't understand why we even write a letter saying we need this by September 1st, and it's October, or August 1st in some cases, and it's now October, and we still don't have it. I don't know exactly what to do with that. Our next option is...
So we've been talking about this for a very long time.
We have.
So I guess instead of continuing to talk about it, is there a proposed solution to help motivate
Well, I would
get this done?
So,
Otherwise, I don't think we...
to John's point, we've been talking about this, we've set deadlines. I think the other alternative is enforcement action. And we're getting to the point now in the year where construction season's going to end, and you're not going to be able to do anything, and it's going to buy him an extra 4 to 5 months if we give him that deadline, because he's going to say, I can't build anything. It's the end of construction season, snow on the ground, everything's frozen. So I think at this point, it might be time for enforcement action, because we're running out of time for him to take action before the construction season really ends. And if we want to actually have these deadlines mean something, there's got to be a consequence if you don't meet the deadlines that he said he could agree to. When we asked him about the deadlines, you said that you can meet those deadlines. You didn't meet those deadlines.
Can I make a proposal through the chairman?
Sure.
Give me 2 weeks. I'll sit down with I'll have her there, my engineer there, and see if we can come up with any solution other than what's there now. If there is a way to do that, I'll do it.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
You've had 4 weeks. You've had 4 weeks.
4
The
weeks?
deadline was September 1st. You've had 4 weeks since that deadline, and you haven't done what was required. So why do you need 2 more weeks?
If a solution needs to be done,
But the solution needed to be done September 1st.
he came and looked at it, and he didn't think there was anything that could be done there.
Do you meet the requirement in the letter by September 1st?
We know the answer is no. So, all right, so. I'm really not sure how to proceed. I really don't want to do enforcement actions. I want to be,
Maybe what we should, I think everyone knows my position on this, and I've been back and forth many times on it. Some of these things, yes, have finally been completed. There are a number that were not due to be completed till November 1st. My suggestion is that we have a discussion, or Jenny has a discussion with Fred as to what an enforcement would involve. Farouk, you can take a look at the outstanding items, come back at our next meeting, which is 2 weeks from now. And at that point, taking a look at this list that we have to see where we are on that, and knowing, and I think at this point, since we don't really know what we're talking about as far as enforcement, we can find out, Jenny can find out what enforcement would require, and we can have a discussion about that at the next meeting for those things that are not completed or look like they're not going to be completed in time for the schedule that's set forth here.
yeah, so enforcement could include fines of up to $300 per day. We already know that.
But I think we have to have some discussion with Fred about this as to whether, enforcement is on the books. Does this mean that enforcement is?
We're going to recommend zoning enforcement if we do. I'm not suggesting we do that tonight, but
No.
Look, we have a meeting on the 17th, presumably, unless town meeting carries over, right? I would say that everything on this list that doesn't have a November 1st deadline needs to be done to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, so that she can report to us for our meeting that those are done. Furthermore, I would suggest that everything that needs to be done by, that's suggested to be done by November 1st needs to be done, right? I don't want you in here on November 7th, is our meeting? I don't know, whatever our meeting is. 14th, telling me that, yeah, it'll be done Thursday.
Just to give another update, Mr. Chairman, I had ordered those light poles. I think we have talked about it, although you never asked me that while I am volunteering that information. That I had ordered about 3 to 4 weeks ago, and they said it's going to take about 6 weeks. I got a call today. They're going to ship those poles in 2 days, and they're coming from Houston. It'll take 10 days for them to get here. So, my hands are tied. I've got it all prepared, so as soon as the poles come, we'll install them.
So the utilities all in, the electric's all in, and that's running all the way down to Fisher Street.
Yes, all the way to Gleason.
So, Farouk, my problem with that answer, right, is it took you so long to get that approved with design review that now you're up against it at the end of it, right? And you want us to just keep forgiving these deadlines. If you had just gotten your act together with design review, you could have ordered those light poles 6 months ago, and they'd be installed already. So I don't really have a lot of sympathy for you on that. Like, if they're not in by the 1st of November, I'm going to recommend to the board that we ask Fred to start enforcing. I'm just sick of this. I'm so sick of this. Look, I want to be a cooperative partner with you, but if I can't trust that you're going to follow through on the things you sit here in front of me and tell me you're going to do, right, then I don't know how that makes us partners in this. It it makes me the bad guy, and I really don't want to be the bad guy, but I will be the bad guy if this continues. So, all right. anyway.
Mark, could I just ask, so if we do recommend enforcement and it goes into effect, and then Farouk does check these boxes off within the next, call it, next few days, does Fred have to go out with Jenny to then get approval to stop the enforcement? Like, how does that
Well,
process work?
we can recommend enforcement. He has the discretion of what that enforcement is. So he doesn't have to even start fining him if he feels like, that's not appropriate, but.
Yeah, but I would like
And what-
some clarification is what I was saying, in the fact that, yes, okay, we can recommend enforcement, what does that mean? Because I think that Farouk or any applicant needs to know what enforcement means. I mean, you can direct, we know what the law or the bylaws or whatever they are say, as far as that goes, but I think we need some clarification and discussion to make sure that we and the enforcement officer are on the same page and make sure that it's going to be done. I mean, I don't want to be in a situation where someone comes to me later and says, well, I think he seemed to be moving forward and doing what he was supposed to be doing, but, that doesn't hold water with me anymore.
Hazel, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. My suggestion would be that on the 17th, we get a report, and everything that was supposed to be done prior to that date needs to be done. We'll hear from the not the building commissioner anymore, sorry, community development director on exactly what his process for zoning enforcement would be. We can make a decision whether we want to recommend that zoning enforcement on the 17th, or if we want to wait till November 14th. And if everything's not done by November 1st with those deadlines that we set, he's got his 2 weeks that he's always asking for because we don't meet till the 14th.
So if town meeting runs long and we don't have a meeting on the 17th, what's the process?
Well, then we'll have him in here on the 14th, and everything needs to be done, and Fred will explain to us what his zoning enforcement process would be, and we'll make a decision then about whether to ask him to initiate that process. And that's over a month away.
Yeah, but
All this
for-
stuff should have
yeah.
been, the stuff, in my opinion, should have been done 6 months ago.
He's got to
These
make
people
sure
have
he
been
looks.
living there for-
Yeah, Mark, at this list that we've got here, because there are things that we talked about, which it says the developer needs to hire a private company to complete for the fire hydrant things. There are certain things on those lists that I don't know were completed that need to be kind of gone over and made sure. I also don't know, did you finish the siding on the clubhouse? Is that completed now?
Yeah, but, well, the gentleman that's going to do that, when did he say he was going to do the outside? The clubhouse is complete, and.
I know, but you haven't completed the exterior of the clubhouse yet.
But Hazel, I want to hear a report from our Director of Planning
Right.
on October 17th that tells me that everything is done. Not,
was supposed
I don't want
to
to
be
hear
done.
him say, well, it's going to be done,
Right.
Tomorrow because I didn't get my,
I was
act
just,
together.
Yeah, that is not on the list, but it has been discussed, so I just wanted to make sure that we were all aware of the
The
fact
siding on the
that
clubhouse.
it's an outstanding item. Jenny knows it.
Jenny, can you just resend him?
Oh, Yes, that was
the-
relayed to him also.
I was going to say, can you just resend this list to Farouk so he has the list that we need done by next meeting?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
All right. That's,
And then, if it's not done by next meeting, are we under the understanding that we'll recommend enforcement?
Yes,
Yes.
except for those.
Okay, I
others.
just want to make sure we're all on the same, and so Farouk knows, like, if it's
Yeah.
not done, then that's what we're.
Well, all right, now that's an open issue at the moment, because the fact is, there are things that are not due to be done until November 1st. So he
right, I'm
does
not
have,
asking for those to be done by the 17th.
all
Hazel.
right,
It's just the
Okay.
October, yeah.
all right.
For the things that were supposed to be done August 1st to finally get done.
I know this, but are we then going to go to enforcement for those things that were not completed by the next meeting, which is October 17th, we've now given him to, that were on the list before this? will enforcement proceedings begin on those particular items?
So if I
If it's
may,
not, go ahead.
so the planning board would just be requesting enforcement from the zoning enforcement officer. He would then have to make the decision to begin enforcement. And that would happen through essentially a ticket of sorts, which is subject to $300 a day of fines accumulating from the date that he writes it and issues it. And then that would go through the court process to pay those fines. Now, when it gets to a point, maybe the things are completed, the fines can potentially be withdrawn, but Fred would have to be the one to initiate that.
So I'm not asking him to finish the things that we told him needed to be done by November 1st, by the 17th. I'm not moving that deadline up on him. But I'm saying that those things that we said need to be done by November 1st had better be done by November 14th when we meet on the 14th. And I think that's
That's fine.
reasonable because
As I said, I was just-
he's had that deadline for
Right.
2 months now, July 26th, that letter.
We're talking about two separate groups of things. One are the things that should have been done by now, and the other section is a section of things that are not due to be done until November 1st. So the question was, in my mind, was that when we come back for a meeting on the 17th, if the things that are not completed, you know, at that particular time, then enforcement proceedings would start for his failure to complete those items.
Correct.
And then when he comes back on November 14th, it's a second enforcement.
I think
thing.
we're
You see
saying
what
the
I'm
same
saying?
thing.
All right,
Yeah.
so I'm just trying to clarify.
All right. All right, so what else on this? Are we talking about the new project?
So he did submit a plan that showed the construction entrance that the board had requested. I can bring that up on the screen. I don't know if you want the applicant to speak to that.
Ruth, do you want to address this? I mean, I think it's straightforward. You've located a construction entrance.
Do we need to approve this plan, or is he just
No,
presenting it for us?
That'd be part of the entire
Is he
modification.
just looking for comments?
Just comments at this point.
This is part of the modification request. So this is the open hearing that you're discussing to approve the plans that were part of the special permit modification, which the board could move forward with at a meeting with the understanding that there's still open enforcement under the existing special permit. So approving this doesn't mean that you're waiving any enforcement.
Comments?
I think it looks fine.
Great to me.
Lisa, did you have a chance to look at, okay, so we'll get engineering comments on this at a future meeting. Okay, that's fine. I think it's as far away from the main entrance as you could get, which I think is a good thing. You know, there's a vacant lot next to that, so I think it'll be the least impactful location for an entrance, so I'm fine with it at this point.
I agree with you.
Wait, is it coming in the original driveway at the end there? I mean, is it using the same driveway that comes off Fisher Street down for the entrance to the whole development? Is it coming in there and then coming off there? See, what I see on this doesn't tell me. I mean, looking at the,
No, you can see the
Picture,
curb.
do you see what I'm
where
saying?
the curb cut is for it, Hazel?
oh, all right, okay. Thank you. Okay, so the curb cut's that way, right?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
easier
Yeah,
when we
Yeah,
That's fine.
see the color.
It just, yeah,
it's away from.
yep, got it. No, that's not a problem.
He'll have to restore the sidewalk.
Sidewalk.
That's probably my one concern is that people will still be able to use that sidewalk
One on connecting to Gleason?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we are doing that.
No, people from Westborough Village will still be able to walk down that sidewalk to get to the crosswalk. You're not gonna obstruct the sidewalk with your construction entrance.
What sidewalk are you talking about?
Sidewalk on Gleason Street, yeah, right there.
Yeah, we would have to make sure that it's
That
not
sidewalk will
obstructed.
still be
Right,
usable
right.
because
Exactly.
your crosswalk on,
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah.
is further. I'm not
What's
even
at
sure.
the end of Gleason? Yeah, it's up the road there.
Right, but people will need to be able to get past that construction entrance to get
Correct.
to the
It'll be the
crosswalk.
same level, so you can just walk
Okay.
away. Yeah.
All right.
I
Any
moved-
any other updates on this?
Yeah, sorry. I have one thing. Farouk, you sent us a copy of a proposed design of the building.
Signage?
The
Design? Oh, I thought we already submitted that.
Right, well, you submitted that. Right, you submitted something as a proposal for that.
Right.
I did have a very brief discussion at design review last week, and I think that we would very much like to meet with you and whoever is doing this design, as we feel strongly that it is not really in character with the rest of the neighborhood and what you've built there. And I would suggest and would ask that you get on the next design review board meeting to discuss this, because I think there is some feeling from the board, as I said, that this was not what they envisioned to go in this particular area because of what you have there. I mean, what you have there are very nice clapboard houses, and this just doesn't seem to go with that at all. So we'd appreciate it if you come to design review. Jenny can let you know, or Kristen, at our next meeting to discuss this further. And I'd like to do it now before any plans get moved forward. So I'm
Is
just
there
sort
a
of
meeting
putting you
scheduled
on
right now?
notice. Right.
Is there a meeting scheduled?
I think our meeting's not until like the 17th, November, when, oh, wait, do we have an October meeting?
So you understand that this building is going to require design review approval?
Yes,
Okay.
I understand
So
that.
what she's asking is that you get ahead of that.
We
That
have
we
a
don't,
meeting, yeah.
that we don't get, right up to building permit and have another delay waiting for a design approval.
We have a meeting,
As Hazel suggested, I'll come to the next design review board with my architect,
great, it's
and
October
then
17th.
we can have a conversation.
Good, perfect.
Thank you.
October 17 at 8:30 in the morning.
Need to know when that is.
Yeah,
The 17th.
October 17th.
October, no, this one, 17, okay. We'll be there.
great.
We'll see you 8:30 in the morning and 8:30 at night. All right. Any other outstanding issues on this? Comments?
No, so my only question would be is just so that I know what to look for from the applicant and he knows, are there any other plans that the board is looking for before you
Yeah,
choose
I'd
to
like to
close
see
the
where the
hearing?
fencing is going to be. I think we
Okay.
asked for that at the last meeting. We've brought up many times a project manager. There's nothing, it's never too soon to hire a project manager, in my opinion.
So you're suggesting that would be a condition, though, of the decision, the project manager? Or
I
do
am,
you want him
yes.
to, okay.
I would not mind if he did it tomorrow, but certainly I want to incorporate that into the decision.
So
I think
will
it would
have-
benefit you, because, I don't
I don't
know.
even think we have to explain it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So I have compiled throughout the hearings suggested conditions that the board has come up with. So at the next meeting, I'll have a decision drafted with suggested conditions that the board can review. And then
we are
we'll be waiting for
yeah.
engineering comments as well.
But we're technically in an open hearing now,
Right.
public hearing now, yeah.
Right.
I just want to make sure I have the right things for the board at the next meeting.
We're not going to approve a decision till after those November 1st items are done. So if you want to circulate a draft for the 17th, I'm going to recommend we continue that to the 14th, because on the 14th, if things aren't done, I'm not going to move that decision forward. So, you know, I would love to have you come in here and on the 17th and say everything's done, we can move everything forward. That I will not hold my breath for, but that would be great. So,
Understood.
what
I
else?
think this week I'll make a lot of progress because a lot of irons are in fire. They're just sitting there. It'll be done. Tomorrow, the berm is being done, then the sidewalk will start. Dumpster would be completed hopefully by Thursday. So
Okay.
I'll be very closely in touch with you.
I don't need to hear,
Okay.
I don't need to hear your schedule. I just need you back here on the 17th telling me
Fine.
that through Jenny, that everything is done, okay?
Okay.
It is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment? Please come up. As with the prior hearings, we're asking people to keep their comments brief. It's getting late, but I certainly wanted to give you an opportunity to state your point. So
Yeah.
name and address, please.
Yeah, sure. Prabhat Pradhan, 4 Dania Drive. So I sent an email to Jenny and Kristen. So basically, this is the document we got in internal discussion. So here it is mentioned there will be like 14 guest parking, like for 15 houses actually. So that is what actually when I bought the house, probably it was promised to me, 8 parking will be back and some parking will be in the area next to the, the garbage dumpster actually. So right now, like in the modified plan, we see like, 2 parkings are provided after taking out some of space from the green area. So we were kind of looking for where is the 4 other parkings, so can you please look in that matter?
And we are, yes, we are definitely reviewing that to see what the original plan showed compared to this plan. I will note that the original plan did have a parking table, and the proposed plan does also. So that's something that I can send to you, and we can discuss that.
Okay, do you have a response to that, or you're, at this point, or you want to get?
I got the letter from her, forwarded to me. I sent it to WDA.
Okay.
For them to take a look at it, to make sure that we are not just talking, so everything is
Understood.
all.
That's great.
Okay. Yeah, and the second one is like, we discussed something on the internal meeting. So if we can get update, like, or if you can send an email, that would be appreciable. Okay, yeah, thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to address the board? Okay, I will entertain a motion then.
I move to continue the hearing until 10/17/2023 meeting date.
Second.
I believe I heard John second it. All those, any discussion, all those in favor? That's 5-0. Next item on the agenda, continuation of the public hearing for the site plan review application at 161 Milk Street. Thank you again, everyone, for your patience. We're almost done.
Barry, do you need to plug in to up here, or?
Barry, are you setting up a computer? Okay, in the meantime, do we have minutes?
Yes. We have minutes from September 5th. My one question, and I really need a clarification on it, is that we did the A&R plans for 161 and 220 Turnpike, and there's a sentence in here, currently there are 2 separate owners in that. Now, my understanding, it's not going to become one owner after that. I mean, it's going to remain in 2 separate ownership, because there's a sentence here, it says there will be one going forward, and my understanding is that's incorrect.
Mark, are you buying both lots?
Excuse
Are
me?
you buying both lots?
We are buying both lots, but it's not going to stay in the same name. It'll be
Well,
separate.
but it'll transfer again.
Yeah, it'll be
so it
separate
is-
ownership.
I think it's.
There will eventually be one ownership in both those
No, it's going to
lots?
start as one ownership, and then.
No, it's presently 2 ownerships.
It is, but he's buying both lots.
But are you buying it in separate entities?
Yes, correct.
Yes, that's correct. He's buying in
And moving
separate
forward, there'll be
entities.
two separate entities.
Yes.
Owning the property. So
One entity is going to buy both lots.
two entities are buying the
Two
lots,
entities, they're two separate entities.
and two entities will own the lots moving forward.
That's what I thought. So I just didn't want the minutes to reflect the fact that it says there will be one owner going forward. So that would be my change to those particular minutes. I don't know if there were any other, because I don't remember anybody saying that, so that, I think we could just delete that sentence if that would be all right. Are there any other comments on, or changes on the September 5th minutes?
I move that we approve the minutes of September 5th with Hazel's changes.
Is there, all in favor? Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Kristen.
So just to make it clear, John and I both missed the last meeting. We both have watched the last meeting on video and have signed the Mullen waiver acknowledging our responsibilities
Well, you can actually vote on
there.
minutes, I believe, if you've read them.
What's that?
Even if you're not there, you can vote.
Well, you
on
can watch
minutes
the
without-
video. I
so-
prefer.
Yeah, you can-
Yeah.
there you go.
It made me feel like I was there.
Next.
Jenny, do you have comments before Barry starts, or should we just go straight to Barry?
Straight to Barry.
Okay, thank you. Barry, take it away.
Hello, Barry Atchison with WDA Design Group, representing Mark Johnson for this particular project of 161 Milk Street. And just wanted to give you a update of where we are, and I think there's a few concerns that were brought up during the last meeting that we can educate you all on. As you know, as the board, went out and we visited the site a month or so ago now. And then we presented at the last meeting of what this particular project is. And quick summary is the existing building on the property, which is an old skating rink, indoor roller rink, will be transformed into a new self-storage facility with a bunch of individual storage units ranging in various sizes. The building will be rehabbed with new facilities inside, doors. The other proposal is to add a second building on the property for the applicant's use. It is two-story, 5,000 square feet, 10,000 total, with another 10,000 square foot storage space on the back side. All one unit. It is one building, not separate individual or anything. It's one building with office spaces inside. The site will be restored. There's existing pavement. There's an entrance and a drive that comes up and through. It is currently paved now. The pavement is completely disintegrated. It is there, but in poor shape. The existing pavement here will be milled, relaid, redone. There is a proposal that all the existing surface area for the stormwater will be collected and sent into below-grade chambers.
I guess we should have put you on first.
I think you have to plug it in over here.
Yeah.
Might work.
Okay. Stormwater infiltration from the existing building will be first directed into a stormwater chamber in here. The new building will also be collected and thrown into another storm chamber. There is an existing drainage system on the property that it currently collects
the stormwater, and eventually any overflow from the infiltration units collected will go into a treatment unit, flow across into the existing drain and discharges out. I want to bring to everybody's attention, there's 2 culverts that actually cross this road, one for this particular property here that comes across, and there's another one a little further up that collects all the state highway and flows and then comes in and discharges into this swale as well. One of the other comments that the town had, or you folks had last week, was how we plan on directing some of the traffic. And I have our traffic engineer, Kirsten, here. So some of the signs that we propose to put on the property to direct folks around our property is this. Do you want to?
Yeah. So Kirsten Braun, traffic engineer for the project with Chapel Engineering Associates. So one of the big comments at the last meeting was to provide sort of a wayfinding signage throughout the site to really help people on the site know which way to exit the site. I think this is particularly important mostly for the self-storage facility, as those the people that will be visiting that site aren't going to be as familiar. I do think that the storage and or the warehouse and office building, those are going to be regular people coming to the site and exiting. So if you notice here, most of the signage is geared towards helping patrons of the self-storage facility entering the site from Milk Street. We have a sign that shows for any users of the self-storage facility to turn left, people going to MA Restoration to continue on straight. Our intent here is to have the MA Restoration employees park in that parking sort of on the south side of that access drive. There really isn't signage geared toward helping people exit from there. It's kind of a tricky location for that, and we do assume that employees will, once they get to the site, they'll know how to exit the site and get back to where they're going. But then you'll see exiting the site once we direct users of the self-storage facility to park in sort of that lighter colored lot on the north side of the drive aisle. Exiting both of those exit points from that parking area, we do designate which way to go for Route 9 eastbound and which way to go for Route 9 westbound. And then just since it is a long drive aisle to get between the site, or at least these 2 preliminary buildings to Route 9, we do have some signage entering the site from Route 9 eastbound that sort of lets users know that they're on the right path to head to the self-storage facility or MA Restoration. And we have another sign a little further down on the drive aisle as well, just to make sure as people go around that bend, they know that they're still on the right path. Similarly, exiting the site, we do have signage to say that, continue straight for Route 9 eastbound, and then as you get to the intersection to turn right onto Route 9 eastbound. We also just added an additional sign on the Milk Street exit to reiterate the right turn only restriction there, just to make it a little more known, especially in that location, that you can't make a left turn there because it is a one-way street. So the signage that we propose here, we didn't want to, overfill the site with signs because that actually might lead to some more driver confusion. So we try to keep it a bit simple. The signs, once we know what the tenant is of the self-storage facility, we can certainly update that, but just for now, just for reference. So we stuck specifically to on-site signage just because all the adjacent streets in the area are DOT owned. We can certainly, as we go through the DOT process for highway access permits, propose signage out there, but we can't necessarily guarantee that they'll let us add really anything else. There is one spot in particular I think might be really beneficial to add to try and ask the DOT for signage, and that's when you exit onto that Milk Street ramp and you're traveling towards Route 9 eastbound. There really is no signage there today to really tell you that you need to turn left to then get back to Route 9 westbound to then go north on Milk Street. So I could see maybe users of the self-storage facility continuing straight and then winding up on Route 9 eastbound when they didn't really intend to. So I didn't show that signage here, but I figured that was the location that we looked at a little bit that made most sense.
I'm sorry to interrupt there.
Yeah, no, go.
Since you brought it up, though, have you met with DOT about that left turn yet?
No, we haven't started the access permit process at all
Yeah,
yet.
I know it's not marked now, but I thought at one point that was marked no left turn from the Milk Street ramp onto that little.
I know
side
that
street.
there are a ton of left
And
turn
it's not-
restrictions.
It's not built for a left turn, it's built for traffic coming off of Route 9 East to go to Milk Street
Right,
northbound.
right.
But it's not.
It's not signed that way today, and certainly when we did our traffic counts, people were making that left turn movement. I know that, as you get to, I think in the last meeting, I was calling it the Milk Street ramp versus Milk Street, just to
Right.
clarify. There are a ton of left turn restrictions on Milk Street itself, but that's something we can talk to the DOT about as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not under our control, is my understanding. It's a DOT ramp?
Correct.
Okay.
Can I make a comment about the right turn only sign at the entrance on the Milk Street ramp, that one? What is the potential to switch it to the other side and having no left turn lane sign?
Yeah,
Because what I've seen in my experience is when the sign's on the right and they want to take a left, they ignore that right sign. If it's
Yeah.
on the left and they're turning left, they're going to see it.
Yeah. No, we can certainly, this is just for discussion purposes. I know we didn't have a plan to show you folks last time, so we're certainly open to any recommendations or suggestions.
I'm sorry, I did cut you off, so if you want to
No,
continue.
that was pretty much the end. Just to sort of discuss that we can propose signage to the DOT, but we can't guarantee it here.
Well, you can propose travel routes to them too, but you can't guarantee it. So I think we need an answer on that at some point before this process moves forward.
Could I raise a question?
Yeah, just, is that your entire presentation? Okay, Hazel, go ahead.
One of my concerns at the moment is the construction traffic for the building and any other constructions can be done on that property. And I feel very strongly that any construction traffic should come in and go out on Route 9 and not go over Milk Street. I think further that because it will be your contractor essentially who will be doing that, he or they could be directed when they leave the property getting on Route 9, that if they're returning to Westborough, they must go down to Lyman Street and come in and not use, the name of the street there? No.
Park Street?
Park Street. Sorry, not use Park Street because of all the residences along there. So I would hope that, that for construction, during the construction phases in the property, either the first lot and/or the second lot, that all the construction traffic come in and out on Route 9.
Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah.
It was directed, I'm sorry, I'm waiting for
I mean, I don't want to give.
I am open to that suggestion. Again, it's the first I've heard of it, so I'd have to kind of think through things, but I think we could work something out. It's not.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. I mean, the thing is that Milk Street ramp is so narrow that if trucks are trying to come in and out of there, it's going to cause problems to the trucks, essentially. And I thought this would be the least disruptive way for the construction traffic. And also, I know there's concern from people that live on Park Street, and if they know that you can direct your own contractors to get down to Lyman to come back in, it will alleviate some of their concerns, because I do feel once the project is there, the traffic will not cause a burden to the neighborhoods around because of the type of traffic with the self-service and the businesses that are going to be in there.
Chairman, the only thing with that is if the trucks are too large and they can't get back under the bridge coming back from Lyman.
the railroad bridge.
Well, then they're gonna have to work it out. Then they're gonna have to go down, go back up Route 9 and do something about it. I mean, this is not such a huge project that I can't, I mean, I've seen the size trucks that go under there. This is not the type of construction that's gonna involve the sorts of trucks that generally get stuck under the bridge.
I don't know why they would have to go under the bridge. I'm still confused by that.
If they have to come back through the center of town, they'd have to go through Lyman
come
and
Lyman.
then take the right-hand turn. They'd have to go underneath the train bridge.
But as I said, it's, no,
they'd
they're not
have to
huge tanker
do a
trucks.
U-turn at Lyman and come back to Milk Street.
Okay.
Right? I mean, they're not gonna, I really don't,
Okay.
I mean, are your trucks coming from where the?
I don't know where they're coming from.
Yeah, so I don't, my only concern with that is, you're moving the entrance further east to improve visibility. You're gonna need construction vehicles to move that. You put the cart before the horse, now we have construction vehicles entering at a driveway that doesn't have good visibility until you actually construct the new. So there's kind of there's going to be a period of time until that new entrance is constructed that I'm just going to be concerned about trucks, visibility on Route 9 and how, and again, that's a DOT decision of whether they're going to make you put some type of construction marking or signage or whatever on Route 9. I don't think we can control that. So all right, I don't want to monopolize this. Other questions? All right, well, I wasn't here, so I do have more questions. The drainage was a big issue at the last meeting. I actually think because you're reducing the impervious surface by so much, that will be a benefit to drainage. And I actually have confidence that our engineering department will ensure that your drainage is adequate and won't be impactful to the neighbors. So I understand the concern of the neighbors on that. Given the history of the neighbors with flooding, I would be concerned too, but I'd like to think that we're going to, I expect us to engineer a solution that will improve that for the neighbors. And I do think the substantial reduction in impervious surface will help. So traffic is a big issue for me, and I think I already addressed, I'm not even sure you can take a left turn off of that Milk Street ramp. I believe there used to be a sign there that said no left turn. At some point it went away, probably a truck rolled over it and they didn't bother to reinstall it.
You can Mark, you can make a left turn, but what you can't do
You can make a
is
left turn,
go
but I don't
down
think you're
there.
supposed to make a left
Then
turn.
you
I think.
can't make a left-hand turn onto Milk Street. You have to go right at the end of that.
All right, well, again, that's a DOT decision. I don't think we, but I'm just nervous. What happens if they come back and say you're not allowed to take that little left-hand turn? And then now we're back to different travel routes. I really don't want to encourage more traffic on Park Street. To me, Park Street should have a no truck enforcement. If anything, we should put do not enter except to abutters. I don't know. I mean, these are things that are outside the purview of this meeting. I'm not asking you to do anything there, but I think, the select board should consider doing something to improve that, because it should not be a cut through to Route 9 from Milk Street, and it should not be a cut through to get back to Milk Street from Route 9. I don't know what the solution is there. It's probably a select board issue, though, unless,
I don't know how you can enforce that, but,
well,
I mean, for trucks, yes, but anyone else, I don't know. It's a public road.
well, you can enforce one-way do not enter signs on West Street next to the school.
And you can have timed, you can't, like, by a school zone, you can't go through this during school hours and such like that. Yeah,
Right,
there's definitely-
I don't know what the residents on Park Street would want, right? Would they want it to turn completely one way? Would they want do not enter at both ends except to abutters? I mean, these aren't decisions that we even have the authority to enact, as far as I'm concerned. But I don't want to encourage more traffic on Park Street. And if you can't take that left turn off of that Milk Street ramp, then everybody's going to go to Park Street, right? Now, I'm really concerned about traffic coming down Milk Street. Either they get off too early off of Route 9 eastbound, or they're coming down from Northborough, or they're Route 9 westbound, and instead of doubling back east, they decide, oh, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to take a left at that hump and get into the driveway that way. I've seen cars do it probably 3 times in the last 2 weeks, right? So that intersection stinks. If there's a grade on that intersection for DOT, like that whole interchange probably gets like a -0 on a scale of 1 to 10. I mean, so I don't expect that you are going to solve that, but I don't want to exacerbate it either. And I would like to figure out as a town what our future is there, because it's got to be better than what it is now. And if that future, involves cooperation from neighboring landowners, I'd like to get to it at this point, but it's probably premature to even talk about that. Noise, sound, I don't want it to be an issue for the neighbors, but I think the self-storage, is that like loading bays on the exterior, or do you go into the building to load?
They're all interior access. You
Okay.
would enter for one central access point.
Okay,
and then
so
you'd
that
enter
sounds like it'll mitigate any sound impacts from people even coming late in the evening. Do you know if that'll be limited hours, do not enter after 10 o'clock or something?
As of right now, it's going to be a 24/7.
24
24/7.
hours, yeah, that's what they said,
So
yeah.
Go ahead, Hazel, because I got to think of my
No,
other.
I was just going to say, I think, looking at the project as a whole, the traffic and usage thereof is so much less than what you'd get if there were an office building in there, people 9 to 5. The fact that it's a self-storage unit, which means that people are going to come and go at different times. Also, you only have one business in there at this particular time. They've got X number of employees. I think your employees are out a lot during the day anyway. So I think that, quite frankly, it's the best of both worlds, because I don't think you're going to have the amount of traffic that you would get from a business, a manufacturing plant, which could go in there, or a large office building. So I feel that the traffic patterns are a concern, but the traffic usage, I'm not as concerned about because of the usage.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think this is a highly intensive traffic use, right? But I still think that the traffic patterns there, unfortunately, I think it's not just related to this project, it's related to the whole intersection as it currently stands. It's just stupid. All right. I probably had other points, but the solar canopy. I mentioned this to the director of planning. I'm all for it. We do have a solar bylaw, and I just want to make sure that conforms with that, and that we don't get to the point of building permit and have the zoning enforcement officer tell you can't do it. So just, if we could double check that. I don't remember if that was just in residential zones, or I was on the board when we passed it, but that was a long time ago. So, just want to double check that. And that was my last point for now. I'm eager to see what the traffic peer review says, and I know that's an expensive review, but I think this site warrants that, so.
I have a question on the development, but just while you're here, what are you planning on doing with your current building? Do you own that?
Yes, yeah, we'll keep that. it'll be leased out for future business or whatever to do.
You wouldn't be using it for yourself, you'd just be using it as like an office building?
We'd be moving out of that facility and into the new one, and that
Right.
would be an open space for somebody to lease.
Gotcha, okay.
Since you brought it up, I will say, at some point, the town would like to do a side path, the full length of Fisher Street. We've already got a grant to do it up to from the Church Street to Assabet River. Someday we'll be asking you for some, easement across the front, because I don't think it's wide enough.
I didn't catch that first.
At some point, we'd like to put a side path, the full length of Fisher Street, to connect. Right now, there's a grant to, a side path being a sidewalk that bikes can ride on. Okay, so it's just,
A sidewalk.
right now, the right-of-way is probably
Wide
not,
sidewalk?
right now, the right-of-way on Fisher is probably not wide enough to do that, so we're gonna have to ask landowners for some space. So just it could be 20 years from now, but we do have a grant that's coming to do a side path from Church Street to the Assabet River, and there is a pedestrian and bike bridge going over the train tracks, so if we can run that side path all the way down, it could connect the train to downtown and all that. Anyway, getting sidetracked again, sorry. Not asking you for anything there either. All right?
Good info.
Is there anything else? All right. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to address the board? As I said before, please try to keep your comments as brief as possible and state your name and, yeah, I know you have all been very patient, so you can, as far as I'm concerned, take as long as you want, but.
It's gonna be quicker than this was right now. God bless you guys.
Yeah.
You guys did a great job.
Okay.
I listened to a lot of stuff.
Okay, I just need you to name and address
Yep.
before you address the board.
Yep,
Thanks.
David Correa from 145 Milk Street, apartment 3. I wasn't at the first meeting as well, but I do have some questions. And it actually goes with the bike path trail that you're talking about. We met, I'm on the board, as well as another gentleman that's here as well. We met with a couple of people last week to talk about the bike path and what that would entail, especially with this project right here. I guess visually you have to be right there at the site to look at where one of our buildings is right there, where not only the bike path, which we're not against, I'm actually working with a lot of towns for accessibility stuff, that's what I do.
Right.
But it's what is also moving there, and the traffic is already ridiculous as it is. We were lucky enough to get the curb cuts with the pads that we finally got. We still haven't gotten the flashing lights. It's only gonna be a matter of time before someone does get hit with the traffic that's there. You are absolutely correct. You can take a left, but once you're there, you can't take another one because of so many accidents in the past. You can only take a right. So that traffic part is gonna be very tricky, especially with the big trucks. There's gonna be some work to be done there, but I wasn't sure because you were soft-spoken. Did you say the place is gonna be open 24/7, the facility?
The self-storage will be, yeah.
So 24/7. We have, and I wasn't sure because it was hard to hear and I'm kind of tired, I'm not gonna lie, how high the buildings were, they're gonna be?
Well, it's the skating rink that's there now. It's
Okay,
just
so the
gonna be-
same height.
You're not putting a second floor.
It'll be similar height, maybe a little taller, but it'll be similar.
Okay,
And
sorry,
the-
thank you.
The storage bays will be accessed from the interior.
Inside, I heard that part, and which that is key because I was worried about traffic, noise.
So
We have
as
a-
far as the bike path goes, when that actually gets built,
Yeah.
that would be the point to ask for visual screening or some type
Oh,
of
yeah,
screening.
yeah. Absolutely,
For now, there's
absolutely.
plenty of screening.
Yep.
From my understanding, there's plenty of vegetation between your building and the proposed construction.
Okay, the only concern I have was our area right, it's hard to take a look, but right in the corner of the building, it's kind of like wetlands between the conservation and everything else. We've had some floods there.
Yeah.
Already. We actually got the landscaper to put in some shrubs there to try to soak it up.
Yeah, that was brought
It's-
up at the last meeting,
Okay,
too. And
it's a constant-
I think, again, they're going from 63% lot coverage to 40% lot coverage with
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
pavement and buildings, so that's a huge reduction in,
Oh, yeah, yes.
stormwater runoff that could hopefully saturate
and visually,
Their
we're
site
not going
instead
to
of
be
our
able to
own.
see your location, so that's one plus. It's just the traffic for me. I think you said it's Mass DOT, which,
Yeah,
that's another story for another day, but that traffic area coming out of the plaza, going down either way or side of Milk Street, it's going to be an issue.
it's always an
So,
issue, though.
it's
It's
always,
not, I
and
don't
then
think it's just specific to this
If I was, my
project.
understanding was, is it going to be, you come in off of Milk Street and you go out of Route 9, or is it going to be both ways where you can go off of Milk Street as well?
Yeah, there's both the driveways, you can go out of either, but they're obviously right in, right out only.
Okay. That was all for my questions for
Okay,
right now.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Anyone else from the public wish to? Yeah, that one doesn't, apparently.
My name is Richard Moore. I live at 151 Milk Street. I have a few concerns. One of them was, well, you covered most of them, but one of them was the bike path, vegetation, and property values. Now, with this construction going to have tractor trailers in and out on a 24-hour basis, you're going to have a lot of noise, a lot of construction that's going to take place. Plus, you're going to have the noise problem is that we have 158 families that live right next door to it. And this is going to be a problem. There's a lot of children with us and older people. So that right there would be a problem. Access to the property, egress, and so forth, like you were saying, you can't come out of onto 135 because 135, the ramp that comes off of 135 and goes up to Route 9 is a different grade. It falls off real quick. It's a different grade when it runs up to Route 9. So you can't have something coming off there on the left at all. As far as tractor trailers go, coming out there to take a right, you're right, Mr. Silverberg. There isn't enough room for a tractor trailer to really make that sweep to come around and pull the back end of the truck around. My proposal would be to use Route 9 for both entrance and exit. All smaller vehicles, they use the other entrance exactly.
I don't know if you have a question or.
Well, I'm just,
Okay.
I don't. I just
Okay.
want to point my issue out to you.
Okay. Did you have a question on the bike path?
I think the bike path, I was just talking to one of the board members. I think we have the bike path down already.
Okay.
It's-
So just to be clear, there's a active transportation safety committee is having a meeting on the 23rd, I believe, where they're going to discuss the recommended easements for this site. I know there's been some back and forth on that already, and I'm waiting to hear what their recommendation is. So far, the applicant has been extremely cooperative to the easements that were proposed in the feasibility study. So I just don't know what the active transport, the ATSC will recommend there. Okay?
The bike path has been around for a couple of years now. They've asked us to come on the property and so forth, but we had problems with that at that time. The planned path now is to go between the two properties. And I think that's a good idea, and we may be dealing with them very soon about that.
Well, I have my own ideas on that, but it's well outside the scope of this, so.
All right.
All right, we can have a cup of coffee, I'll tell you all about it.
Thank you.
All right.
Excuse me, Mark, can I just clarify what he had said as far as 18-wheelers and construction traffic 24/7? I don't think that
Oh, that was the point I wanted to make, I'm sorry. We're going to limit construction hours to daylight hours, no Sundays, no holidays. You're not going to have construction vehicles showing up at 6 a.m. If they do, that will be, I mean, we like to have a trade-off between getting the building built quickly and, you know, not waking people up at 6 in the morning. So there's a compromise there, but we'll certainly, listen to recommendations on that. All of this can be communicated by email, too. You can email the Director of Planning, and, if you have anything you want us to know, she'll relay everything to us, okay?
Can I address the hours of operation and kind of what the operation would look like? Because I think there were some questions last meeting, and there's a little misconception about our business and what the facility is actually going to be used for.
Sure.
So the 24/7 storage facility, the limited number of bays that we're going to get in that building, the traffic impact on that would be very minimal. Once it's full, people are not going to be coming there every day, just they're going to be, moving stuff in and out. So that's that one property. The other building for our business, there's not going to be trailer trucks that are going to be coming day and night there. There's not going to be vehicles that will come there day and night. We are a 24/7 business, but those are for emergency calls, and there'd be 2 to 3 vehicles, cars that would come in. They'd get one of the company trucks and they would leave. So we're not talking about a lot of noise. All of our stuff is inside besides a vehicle starting and leaving type of thing. There's not going to be any noise that's going to be 24/7 or trailer trucks even coming in, multiple trailer trucks a day. The trailer trucks coming into that site are very minimal at best. But we do have a dock door so that we could service a trailer truck when it came in. But we're not talking about a big warehousing, transportation, trucking type company. This is a very, small vehicles, individual vehicles and stuff like
I've
that.
been by your place
Minimal.
thousands of
impact, yeah.
times, and I've seen the trucks there, and they're not huge, so that's, I think, a good thing.
Also, just to add, just about, I know there's concerns that we'll be sending any trucks that we may have onto Milk Street or having them access the site via the Milk Street ramps. I think that the intent here is to have all traffic, our truck traffic, enter via Route 9. We'll have to go through the DOT process when designing the site driveway, and I'm certain that they'll want the Milk Street driveway to be smaller in scale specifically for these reasons, because it's not, a commercial driveway off of Route 9. There are design standards that we'll be following, and we will, be reinforcing via the design of the driveways to keep tractor trailer truck, any small amount of tractor trailer trucks to utilize Route 9 rather than Milk Street.
Okay. Anything else from the public? Okay, I think we're going to continue this to the 17th, if somebody wants to make a motion.
I move we continue the hearing for 161 Milk Street. Site plan review.
Let's talk about the date for a second to the.
So the peer review won't be back to us by then, and the representative for Time Bond probably won't be available. Well, she told us November 14th. So I don't know if there's any new information that the board expects to receive on the 17th, or
Okay, so
you should just forward.
we'll continue this to the
continue it.
November 14th. Go ahead.
Okay. I move that the planning board continue the site plan review application for 161 Milk Street to the meeting on November 14th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? We'll try and put you guys on first at that meeting, okay?
Thank you.
You owe us. I can't promise, but thank you again for your patience. Is there any other business? Jenny, anything else?
For the board?
On the agenda, I don't see anything on the agenda.
Did you want me to
Oh,
give
I'm
the
sorry, the
master
draft presentation on the master plan.
It's up to you.
I almost skipped right over that. Okay, so,
I don't want to take anything away from Jenny. I looked through it. It looks great.
Yeah.
I don't have any comments.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't,
I did
fine, the
note
only
the
thing
first
was
one
the
had the
date.
meeting date wrong, which I did revise.
I think the layout, it looks really good. It presents the information in a nice, approachable way.
Yep.
okay, so Jenny, I don't think you need to make the presentation tonight, if that's okay. I mean, I know you worked hard on it, so I really don't want to deprive you of that opportunity. Is there any other business then? I don't see anything. We're going to skip reports of board members who attend other meetings. We already did minutes.
Do we want to extend this meeting just for one more minute to get past 10 o'clock? Just for bragging rights,
My
or?
mother-in-law's sitting at my house with 4 kids.
So no other business, Jenny, Kristen, nothing else? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Okay, I heard Hazel motion, John second. All those in favor? That's a unanimous. Have a nice night.
Done.